One Piece Supreme Control, Chapter 181-200. Chapter 181 Newcomer. He remembered the devil fruit that he captured during the battle with the Mito pirates. He never distributed this devil fruit, but kept it alone. The devil fruit book has already been obtained, and compared to the devil fruit book, Yang Qing's pupils shrank fiercely when he found this fruit. In any case, he could not have imagined that it was just a battle that would get such a terrifying fruit by chance. Animal Department. Yang Qing murmured. It's an animal type, but it's a phantom beast, and it's still a terrifying unicorn. The unicorn fruit of the phantom beast type belongs to the fruit of the legendary phantom beast that is similar to the dragon. With such a powerful fruit, Yang Qing naturally couldn't distribute it at will. So, the fruit hides it. If you can swallow 2 fruits, then that phantom beast. Yang Qing narrowed his eyes, and his heart filled with ambition. In the original book, the only person who can eat 2 fruits is Blackbeard. Others, all ate and exploded to death. Although the powers of devil fruits are powerful, they are mutually exclusive. There are rumors that there is a devil hidden in every devil fruit, and when the devil fruit is eaten, there will be a devil hidden in the body. And if 2 fruits are eaten, the 2 demons in the body will fight, and as a result, the fragile human beings cannot withstand the huge power of the devil fruit, and they are blasted to death. If he can eat this phantom beast and cooperate with the animal-type devil fruit to enhance his body's ability, then his strength will increase by leaps and bounds in an instant, growing to a terrifying level. Coupled with the ability to control the fruit, he will have a greater grasp of the future battle with Whitebeard. The power of Whitebeard is famous all over the world. He is known as the most powerful man in the world. He used to be a strong man who competed with Roger, the Pirate King. At this moment, he is at his peak. Clear. The only thing I know is that even the sea soldiers at the moment are not afraid to go to war with them easily. It's still useful to keep you guys, but if there is a little bit of dissent, I'll kill without mercy. Yang Qing said gloomily, causing the researchers in front of them to be afraid of the initiation, and their hearts were bitter and helpless. Be optimistic about them, let them continue their research, and I will come back later. Yang Qing took a deep look at these people and turned to leave. The biggest secret of this base is this secret research base. In other places, after the crew looked at it, they found nothing. Half an hour later, Drizzt and the others came. Seeing Drizzt, Yang Qing asked with sharp eyes. What was the outcome of the meeting with them? It's very strong. Neither Longbottom nor Erdish are their opponents. Drizzy's eyes were very solemn. The person who came is called Reinster, who is suspected to be a person with the ability of Iron Wire fruit. Iron Wire. The people present were a little surprised. This fruit, which sounded useless, turned out to be very strong in Drizzy's mouth. Yang Qing narrowed his eyes and said, take a break and then deal with them, we still have time. After that, the Death God pirates remodeled this base, and it will be used as a temporary residence, which is also equivalent to their temporary home. Every crew member looked excited and positive. For pirates, having their own island is like having their own country, which is a great sense of accomplishment. And on the land of Punk Hazard, the flag of the Death God pirates was also planted, fluttering in the wind, shocking the heroes. Time began to pass slowly, and on the 2nd day, 3 pirates arrived along the coast of Punk Hazard. The pirate standing at a high place was a little surprised when he saw the 3 pirates with a telescope. What's this for? They dare to enter the territory of our death pirates. These 3 groups are not small. There are also a lot of them, maybe 100 people. Another pirate said. Korra, what do you say? Give them a warning, a pirate asked. This is a pirate team on duty, headed by Korra. The island of Punk Hazard is wide and there are many places to defend. There are 7 such 7-person squads in total, staring at 7 different directions on the island, implementing a shift system, and keeping everything here tightly guarded. The cadres of the central base will be notified immediately. Shoot the gun. Korra waved her hand, her eyes cold. Bang, bang, bang. 3 gunshots rang out directly on the island. The crew members of the 3 pirates who arrived were sweating coldly, looking at the place where they were about to step on, and they had no doubt that if they stepped on this go up, and your right foot is gone. Death pirates, found us. The captains of the 3 pirates realized. Then, they saw a position of about 1,500 meters ahead, and a team of 7 appeared. 3 of them were carrying strange guns with blue smoke from their muzzles. We have no malice, we came with friendliness. The captains of the 3 pirates all opened their hands and shouted. Kayla narrowed her eyes, took a deep look, and then commanded, take out the phone bug and signal flare, and be ready to notify the center at any time. Let's go over and take a look. Yes. Immediately, 2 more people took out a phone bug and a firecracker-like thing, always ready. 3 minutes later, the 2 sides made contact. There are 7 people on one side, and there are hundreds of people on the other side, but on the scene, these 7 people are casual and contemptuous, and they don't pay any attention to the vicious pirates in front of them. On the other hand, the Bailey pirates on the opposite side, including their captain, were all terrified and nervous. You guys, what are you doing? This chapter is not over. Click on the next page to continue reading. Without a reason, I will give you the crime of trespassing the territory, and then kill you. Cora glanced around in front of her and said indifferently. The 3 captains were even more nervous, strode forward, and when they reached the front of the 7-man squad, they were pointed at the gun by the ladder and stepped back a few steps. Don't come 10 steps closer to us, otherwise, we'll be rude. The members of the 7-person team said very strongly. We are here to join the Death God Pirates. The captain of the 3 pirate ships said cautiously. That's right, we are all the new pirates who have just entered the new world for less than 3 months, and came to join the Lord Lucifer specially. Our cadres are all people with a bounty of more than 100 million, and I even have a bounty of 200 million. People, one of the 3 captains said loudly, we hope to join the Death Pirates. Then they bent down and saluted deeply. Please adults. Chapter 182 Arrival. Sir, Cora and the other 7 laughed, and then they laughed. Don't call us adults, we are all crew members. Apart from Captain Cora, we are all ordinary crew members. You can just call us seniors. Since you are here to join us, then I will inform the center, and someone will naturally come to receive you. Cora nodded with a smile. Welcome to join the Death God Pirates, come with us. The 3 captains looked at each other in surprise. The 7 people in front of them are imposing and powerful, but they are only ordinary crew members. You know, just now, the momentum of these 7 people made them unable to speak loudly. How could this be the momentum of ordinary crew members? Is this the Death God Pirates? Even the ordinary crew members are so powerful. The 3 captains were shocked. Remember, you must speak carefully when you enter it. Anyone here is your senior. Don't look at your 200 million bounty, but if you meet some ordinary crew members, it is not necessarily their opponent. Kola instructed the team members to notify the center to come to people, and then told them to be humane. We understand. The people of Bailey were just like an obedient elementary school student. Go. Cora smiled when she saw these people, and then turned to leave. He had already seen the companion who came to pick him up. It was one of the second batch of people who ate the devil fruit like him. Remember, that kid seems to be called Ben, and he is also a very scary guy with the ability to be fruitful. These newcomers have experienced too little. A crew member looked at the backs of these people and said with a smile. Soon, after a few battles, they will grow up. Cora said softly. Several other people also sighed. They also grew up quickly after the Battle of Punk Hassad. Every time you experience a battle, you are wandering in front of the gate of hell, and the crisis between life and death makes people grow up extremely quickly. Blood and sweat make them understand the importance of strength, so everyone is practicing hard every day. The crew members after the war were completely different from those before the war. Whether it is willpower, physique, and mental experience, it is a great improvement. In the following time, new people joined the Death God Pirates almost every day. Punk Hazard is in the position closest to opening in the New World, and the reputation and prestige of the Death God pirates have also reached a terrifying level. It has already reached the point where, with this reputation, the pirate group automatically defected. In just 2 weeks, the number of Death God pirates soared to 1,500. Moreover, this number will continue to increase over time in the future. The depths of the New World are occupied by the forces of the four emperors. Over the years, many idle pirate groups are either strong or weak, and some are unwilling to join them, so they are distributed in the New World. When the reputation of the Death God pirates starts, it will naturally attract the attention of many people. The speed of power growth is really fast. It's a dreaded pirate group, but it's very fast. Soon, you will perish. The pirate groups of the four major forces are very afraid, and alone, no force dares to step forward. They dared to attack only after waiting for the gathering in a month. At the naval headquarters, the Warring States period roared again and again at this moment. Damn it. The information on the table made him unable to not be angry. It took so much effort and how long it took for the Navy to secretly control the island at the entrance to the New World. This is the base for the Navy to clear the pirates, and they will be able to open up a good situation by taking this as an opening in the future. However, from today, everything is ruined. The 13 lieutenant generals, all died in the line of duty. The most distressing thing in the Warring States period is that these lieutenant generals who gave silently are not even known by many people. They are willing to sacrifice everything for the Navy, but their end is death. Death God pirates. Warring States clenched his fists tightly, furious. In front of the long table, a young general covered his forehead helplessly when he saw the expression of Warring States. Okay, it's troublesome now. Wu Hai's plan has to be redeployed again. This time, Doflamingo may be asked to go up. My lord, you are really going to cause me trouble. The young general is very troubled. There is no doubt that the occupation of Punk Hazard has brought considerable hatred to the Death God pirates, especially the hatred of the current commander. The depths of the New World. The four Emperor Kaido, who had just been dispatched, was already blocked in a sea area. He roared again and again, but there was nothing he could do. Redhead, Sailor. You guys, get out of my way. The four emperors Kaido roared upwards, as if all beasts roared in unison, the sky trembled, and the entire sea area shook violently. This huge movement shocked everyone. Under the fluctuation of the sea, the ship is like a dead leaf, drifting helplessly. His strong domineering has reached the point where nature retreats. He is only one person, but he is treated with dignity by the powerhouses of both sides. Kaido, only those people, I don't allow you to go there. Before they come here, you must not go to them. The red-haired Shanks held a sword in one hand, surrounded by a terrifying tyrannical aura. The clouds in the sky were shocked into nothingness. Redhead, I heard that you lost an arm in the East China Sea. It looks like it's fake. Kaido spoke like a beast roar. His low voice contained violence. His eyes swept over Shanks' arms, a little dreaded, but never be afraid. Quote. This chapter is not over. Click on the next page to continue reading. Back on your turf, I will never let you step on mine. Red-haired Shanks was extremely tough, and the crew behind him also showed their weapons and blocked Kaido's front. Kaido has one person and one boat, and his momentum is as violent as a flood. He is only one person, but his momentum is extremely terrifying. The strongest creature in the world, shocking countless heroes. Okay, I'll go back. Kaido glanced at the red-haired general, then glanced at the indifferent marine general on the other side, and finally decided to go back. I'll just wait for that kid to come over. I'm tired of fighting with you, just try him. Try him, can he kill me? This guy. Both the red-haired and the sailor narrowed their eyes, their hearts filled with heavy hearts. In the end, Kaido turned his head and left, while the sea soldier and the redhead looked at Kaido's back and did not intercept it. At the same time when the red hair and Kaido met, among Dressrosa, a tall and thin figure also ushered in. After such a long journey, we are finally here. Let's check where the group is now. Chapter 183 Eat It. The tall and thin man had a lazy face, a stubborn stubble on his chin, and a casual air all over his body. He rolled over, jumped off the small one-man boat, and then set foot on the grounds of Dressrosa. At this moment, on this land, there is a news-overwhelming propaganda. King Riku went crazy and even swung a butcher's knife on his own people. Fortunately, Lord Doflamingo will be here immediately. I didn't expect that King Riku would do something to his own people. It's terrible. Touching his head, the tall and thin man was a little confused and murmured, "Listen to what these people said, Dressrosa has changed a lot." "Don't worry, I'll go look for the news of the group first. It should be found soon." The tall and thin man strode into the island and quickly disappeared by the coast. At this time, the pirate who was standing in the inconspicuous corner looked at the tall and thin man, trembling, and said in horror, "Yes, it's him. It's him. It's him. That's right, it must be him. The Whitebeard pirates, the Phoenix Marco. He actually came here." The tall and thin man was the Phoenix Marco, who set out from the Whitebeard pirates and drove alone until today in Dressrosa. The target of his trip was the Death God pirates. This group of people who dared to declare war with the Whitebeard pirates has undoubtedly angered Marco. Soon, Marco came to Dressrosa's kingdom. "It's really confusing." Marco shook his head, but he didn't care about it. He was just looking around for news on his own. A strange place is nothing to Marco. Marco, who has been on the sea for many years, is very familiar with this set. It only took 3 hours for him to find out the latest news of the Death God pirates. What a tricky person. Staring at the person on the bounty list, Marco's eyes narrowed, and then he slowly looked at the group of Death God. 30 reward orders, including cadres and key members, carefully looked at each one, and Marco's expression became more and more solemn. As this group of people developing so fast? Marco took a breath, he was very stressed. With such a scale, such a force, and having already occupied his own island, there is no doubt that it is no longer a role that he can handle alone. Just like the large and small pirate gangs occupying the islands at the entrance of the New World, these forces are the existences that can only be overturned by the movement of the 4 emperors, and they are relatively powerful. This trip, I may be in danger. Marco had a slight smile on his face. But this is the fun. Shredding the bounties in his hand, Marco patted his butt, jumped off the stone he was sitting on, and then walked towards the coast. The target is Punk Hazard, and he can't wait to see the style of this group of enemies. In the Punk Hazard base, Yang Qing was sitting on the seat with all kinds of thin black wires inserted into his body. He frowned slightly, walked around the room, and asked the researcher in a hurry, "Are you sure this instrument can accurately test the value of my body? So, can I eat 2 devil fruits?" Quote, "I'm sure, Captain," said the researcher, sweating profusely. "After our research, we found that if you want to eat 2 devil fruits, you won't die. First, unless you have a special physique. Second, you have eaten the natural fruit, the dark fruit. The second point is that it is very difficult to meet. The dark fruit is more rare than other natural fruit, and has incredible power. Similarly, the first point is also very difficult. We have been the research since then is also aimed at one point, what exactly is this special constitution? There has always been a lot of controversy. And we have come to the conclusion that one of them is that you have the physique of a certain race in the legend. We have not yet come to the conclusion of what this physique is." Yang Qing frowned at the researcher in front of him and said coldly, "Don't talk nonsense." Okay. The researcher was startled, and then quickly said, "The second is that your physique must match the frequency of the devil fruit, and it must also be powerful to the realm of inhumanity. The ability of the devil fruit lives in your body. Their powers are mutually exclusive, and when they fight, it also happens in the body. Then, when your body is strong enough, deformed enough, and able to suppress these 2 forces, there is no doubt that there is no problem." Quote, "This instrument can just test whether your body has this qualification." "Come on," Yang Qing said impatiently. There was a devil fruit beside him. It was the eudemon's fruit. The researcher didn't dare to talk anymore. He found out that this adult doesn't like listening to these explanatory words at all he wants is the result. Soon, the instrument was lit up, and the sound of DDD continued to sound, and the huge giant on the side began to vibrate continuously, and Yang Qing's body felt numb. This is the machine reading the fluctuations of you and the devil fruit, please don't move. The researcher said. Yang Qing nodded, looking at the huge machine in front of him. His heart was a little nervous at this moment. After a full 10 minutes, the machine vibrated violently a few times, and then stopped slowly. How? Yang Qing opened his eyes and asked in a deep voice. The machine shows that your physique meets the requirements, but the fluctuation is inconsistent with this fruit. The researcher said nervously. In other words, after I take this fruit, there is a great chance that it will explode. Yang Qing asked blankly. This chapter is not over. Click on the next page to continue reading. Looking at Yang Qing's face, the researcher was even more frightened and said cautiously, the data obtained by the machine is like this. Also, according to your first item, dark fruit, can you replace it with another fruit? Yang Qing asked. The researcher was stunned, then hesitated. According to the research, if the ability of another devil fruit can be suppressed, there is no problem. However, such devil fruits are very few. Say, there is only one kind of dark fruit. In other words, there are two demons, one of which must be stronger than the other. Yang Qing said. It can be understood like this. The researcher was taken aback and nodded. Do you want to? He had already seen Yang Qing pick up the devil fruit that was put aside, so he couldn't help asking. I'm going to eat it, let me see if I can burst me. Yang Qing said decisively. He has the ability to control the fruit and can control everything. He wants to give it a try. What? The researchers were shocked and couldn't believe it. Chapter 184 Don't Believe. Yang Qing's actions shocked the researchers present. They stopped loudly and ate two devil fruits. No one had ever tried it or seen it before, because everyone who had eaten it died. But today, the world-famous captain actually decided to try his hand at it, which made them a little terrified. In their thinking, if there is something wrong with Yang Qing, then they must be dead. The crew outside will definitely come in and tear them apart. However, Yang Qing doesn't care what these people think. Since the instrument detects that his physique is not up to standard, then it can be suppressed by the devil fruit. He didn't think his control fruit would be inferior to Blackbeard's dark fruit. Scratch. Without hesitation, Yang Qing took a bite. Immediately, a feces-like smell filled Yang Qing's mouth, causing his complexion to change. This smell is really irresistible, the feeling of vomiting. He bent down, gagging hard. At this moment, his body began to slowly change. Appeared, changed. The researcher looked at Yang Qing in horror, his eyes full of fear. They saw that on Yang Qing's arm, strange blue-green scales appeared, glowing with a terrifying light, and it looked hard and sturdy. Strange runes also appeared on his face, and two long horns like antlers grew on his forehead, and the whole person began to develop in the direction of a strange beast. The change has begun. Yang Qing narrowed his eyes, and at this moment, his eyes also turned red, like two flames. He doesn't have the ability to control the devil fruit, but it starts to change autonomously. Sure enough, things started to change. His stature is constantly getting bigger, and there will be a violent wind noise in his breathing. After a while, his limbs had begun to change drastically, and his entire face was terrifying, scaring the researchers to keep retreating. The low roar came out, and Yang Qing was in pain. He felt two air currents in his body expanding, arguing and fighting. His body began to swell irregularly. Explode, it's going to explode, run. The researcher ran out in horror. Yang Qing struggled to growl, and his ability to control the control fruit began to suppress. Master yourself. With a sound, the surrounding space swayed, and a terrifying force began to envelope Yang Qing's growing body. After 3 breaths, with a sound of boom, Yang Qing's whole body was tense, and in the body, this strange power that controlled everything began to sweep the breath that was just born, and it was only a moment, and it was forced to suppress it. But the new aura was extraordinarily violent, and it began to resist frantically. Suppress me, you are in my body, you have to curl up well for me and listen to my command. Yang Qing snorted coldly, but let out a roaring sound. This roar caused a huge wave of air, which immediately messed up the research room and damaged many instruments. And after the sound came out, it also attracted the attention of other people. Dylan's and the others changed their expressions and immediately ran towards this place. Soon, they saw the ferocious beast that was 5 meters high and 15 meters long. What is this? Dylan's pupils shrank. He felt the aura on the beast was very terrifying. Yes, it's the captain, he ate 2 devil fruits. The researcher said tremblingly, staring at the giant beast not far away, full of fear. What? Everyone present was shocked. Nilu directly threw his long stick and pushed the researcher in front of him into the air. You are courting death, do you know? No, it's not our fault. The researchers were terrified, shaking with fear. Boss, why are you acting so foolishly? Dylan's was full of anxiety at the moment, and the others were also nervously looking at the huge beast in the scene. They saw that there was a strange airflow in the body of the beast, and the body began to expand continuously, and the latter made a tragic cry. Roar! The giant beast that Yang Qing changed was constantly rolling over. The power of the fruit in the body began to compete, and he was also very dignified at the moment. The phantom beast-type fruit was not so easy to suppress. This power seems to be born in one's own body at the beginning, and it is so huge that it is only a little smaller than the control fruit. Every time it was about to be suppressed, the other party would frantically resist. The overlord is domineering, suppress me. At this moment, Yang Qing risked everything, but fortunately his physique was strong enough, otherwise he would have died early because of this tossing. But even at this moment, blood began to flow from all over his body. The strong tyrannical domineering suddenly spread to all directions. At this moment, it was almost indistinguishable between the enemy and me. In just an instant, it swept the entire punk facade. What is the breath? Countless new crew members were shocked, and then rolled their eyes and lay directly on the ground. And the old crew members were also afraid in their hearts, and they looked into the depths of the base. Boss, what's wrong with the captain? The officers of the Death God pirates who were in front of them were even more nervous, staring at the behemoth that was constantly struggling and tumbling in the field, and the sweat on their foreheads kept dripping to the ground. After a full hour, the struggle and roar finally calmed down, and the giant beast began to gradually become smaller. Finally, Yang Qing was out of breath and appeared in front of everyone with blood all over his body. Lao Su survived. At this moment, Yang Qing detected his body. 2 kinds of devil fruit abilities lay there calmly, and the ability to control the fruit was slightly stronger, standing firmly in the unicorn. This chapter is not over. Click on the next page to continue reading. The top of the fruit is very quiet at the moment. It seems that they have accepted each other's existence, and in the center of them, a little golden aura exudes a domineering aura. It is the domineering look of the overlord. Captain. Boss. At this time, all the cadres and crew rushed forward. Luo and Moria quickly diagnosed Yang Qing. 5 seconds later, the expressions of the two of them changed drastically. What's the matter? Is the captain okay? Dylan's also asked nervously. 48 bones and muscles are broken all over the body, and most of the internal organs, lungs, stomach, and liver are broken. Luo said in a deep voice, with tears in his eyes. What are you kidding, Luo? Drizzt shouted. He looked at Yang Qing, his heart clenched tightly together. He looks like he has nothing at all, just a skin injury. Drizzt couldn't believe it, couldn't believe that the mighty captain would be injured so badly. With such an injury to his internal organs, he wouldn't be able to survive at all. He did not believe that his captain would die. Do not believe it. Chapter 185 The Resilience of Terror. Dylan's and others were even more nervous, especially Dylan's clenched his hands tightly, his nails were deeply embedded in the flesh, and blood dripped toward the ground. Every cadre has a heavy heart at this moment. Also, is there any help? Robin trembled, asked with a trembling voice. Injuring the internal organs. Luo shook his head in pain. The internal organs were already broken, and it was a great miracle to be able to breathe at this moment. Suppress the audience so that they can't move around. In addition, the captain's news must not be spread. Dylan said in a low voice to Bucky with a chill in his eyes. Bucky nodded. Behind him was Longbottom Erdish, and the cadres who had worked earlier. They turned their heads and left, leaving here quickly. Moving towards the outside, the turmoil caused by Yang Qing's struggle was very obvious, and it affected the entire island. If these crew members wake up, there will be panic. I don't believe that he will die so easily. Dylan strode over, bent down, grabbed Yang Qing's hand and trembled. His voice was a little choked. Tell me, you are still alive, Lucifer. They are comrades in arms who have been together since childhood, brothers, partners, and the closest people in the world. At this moment, with Yang Qing's appearance, whoever is the most sad, there is no doubt that it is Dylan's. I'm still alive. The voice was small, but Yang Qing's voice came out. His heart was heaving vigorously, and his voice was bright. Captain. Luo looked at Yang Qing in shock. He saw that the latter opened his eyes and was in good spirits. He didn't look like he was about to die at all. He immediately diagnosed again. The internal organs are still broken, but his is the spirit so strong. Is it returning to the light? How do you feel? Dylan asked in a low voice, holding back his tears, while the others watched silently with sadness on their faces. I've never felt better than this now. Yang Qing smiled. He was telling the truth. At the moment, he felt that his whole body was full of power. It is his resilience, the phantom beast-type unicorn fruit, that gives him terrifying resilience and defense. Slowly, Yang Qing propped up and stood up. Don't worry, I'm fine. Lang smiled. Yang Qing looked at everyone. Everyone didn't believe it, looked at Yang Qing worriedly, and looked at Luo with suspicion. Standing up so quickly, no matter how you look at it, you don't want to be seriously injured and dying. Don't look at me, I don't know the state of the captain at this time. Luo smiled bitterly. He clearly diagnosed that the captain was indeed seriously injured. 2 fruits, give me invincible power. Yang Qing clenched his fists slowly, and a terrifying physical strength shook the void, causing the surrounding space to fluctuate slightly. Immediately afterwards, he secretly used the power of the devil fruit to repair his broken body. The ability of the unicorn fruit is very unbelievable. In just a moment, Yang Qing's external scars began to scab and fall off quickly. His broken bones and bones also crackled, and they began to heal and connect automatically. When the outer skin is repaired, the power goes toward the internal organs. After wrapping Yang Qing's internal organs, the power becomes cautious. Yang Qing's complexion also changed slightly. While the devil fruit's power repaired his internal organs, the terrible pain swept through his whole body, making him unable to bear it and clenching his teeth. Captain. Boss. How? Everyone looked at the latter worriedly, but Yang Qing closed his eyes. He must be very serious about the repair of his internal organs, and he must not be distracted. For a full hour, all the crew members were waiting, sweat dripping onto the ground, full of tension and worry. In Yang Qing's body, the damaged internal organs were slowly healing. This scene made Luo, who was constantly checking Yang Qing's body, opened his eyes and was shocked. What a terrifying resilience. It's not human at all. Captain, he's fine. Luo roared loudly, causing Dylan's, Drizzt and the others to smile, and then burst into laughter. I knew, I knew that the captain couldn't have died so easily. 2 devil fruits. The captain is probably the first person to eat 2 devil fruits. It's really amazing. Luo, double-check again to make sure that nothing really happened to the captain. Everyone said loudly. They finally breathed a sigh of relief, and at this moment, the crew members outside who had been knocked to the ground by Yang Qing just now stood up in confusion. After they woke up, the first order they faced was to gather together and go to see the leader of the First Division. sabotage Wang Baki. The people inside were relieved, but Bucky outside took tough measures. At this juncture, they could not tolerate the slightest turmoil. Outside the research room, Yang Qing's eyes slowly opened. His body had basically been repaired and returned to its previous appearance. The only difference from before is that there are two huge forces surging in his body now. His strength has reached a higher level than before. At this time, he even has the confidence to fight against Whitebeard. I'm fine, you guys are worried. Yang Qing laughed loudly as she looked at the worried partners in front of her. Ha 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 ha. The crew members all swarmed up, picked up Yang Qing, and threw it into the air. Long live the captain is not dead, ha ha ha. There is joy, excitement, and a touch of warmth in the air. The feelings of these old crew members are temporarily beyond the reach of any other new crew members. Between them. This chapter is not over. Click on the next page to continue reading. The relationship, said to be a crew member, is more like a relative, a sibling, a family. An accident to any one person will fill the family with grief. Outside, Bucky looked at the huge crowd in front of him. His face was different from the smiling face of the past, and his red nose was extremely cold. Everyone, are you all here? Bucky asked in a deep voice. Captain, except for the patrolling people, everyone is here. Glass replied quickly, and Longbottom and Erdish next to him were also serious. Very well, you have joined my death pirates for a while. For a long time, Bucky, the captain of the first division of my death pirates, has not met with you. Today, I am calling you here. Get to know everyone, get in touch with everyone. Bucky said loudly. After a while, he glanced at the crew members with different expressions in front of him and said, I represent the Death God Pirates, and you are welcome to join the new crew members. Hope you can live happily here, be happy. At this moment, the phone bug in Bucky's arms rang. Bucky was startled, and then answered quickly. Bucky, get back, Captain, it's all right. Chapter 186 Marco arrives. The voice in the phone bug, Bucky is very familiar. It is Glades, who is his partner, and the voice is full of laughter. Hearing this sentence, the latter was stunned for a moment, then reacted. His gloomy and stern face immediately changed into a big smile, and then he willfully shouted to the thousands of people in front of him. Ha ha ha, now that labor and management have met with you, get out of here, ha 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 ha. After saying this, Bucky turned and left, and soon only a back was left. Only a few thousand people were left standing in place, in a daze, with black lines all over their faces. Cough, that, Captain Bucky, just kidding everyone. Just kidding. Longbottom coughed and explained, then looked at Erdish, and hurried away from here, before they left again. Glass said, Grass, you are responsible for settling them, we both withdraw. Glass forced a smile, facing thousands of crew members in front of him. His head immediately became big. I also want to see the captain. Humans who have eaten 2 devil fruits are even rarer than divine beasts. At the moment when the base was full of laughter, a small ship was ushered on the shore of Punk Hassad. On the boat, a tall and thin figure squinted slightly, looking at the huge island in front of him, and his heart was full of solemnity. 3 minutes later, the boat docked. The tall and thin figure jumped off the boat, glanced at the entire island, and then walked in quickly. The main force should be in the huge building in the center. As for the squad patrolling in all directions, it will be resolved soon. The tall and thin figure murmured in a low voice, and then he started to run. Just as the figure was moving, the chorus squad that was closest to here noticed it immediately. Captain, find the enemy. A team member shouted quickly. The sniper rifle in his hand turned, and it was already aimed at the fast-running figure. Is there only one person? Cora's eyes narrowed. Can you confirm the identity? I'm making a quick determination. A man with a telescope next to him said quickly. The distance was a little far, and it was difficult to recognize the face. He looked at the figure, but 10 seconds later, the crewman's face changed rapidly. Body, the identity has been identified. Quote. Who is it? Cora became serious. and the person who can identify the identity must not be an ordinary character. The Whitebeard Pirates, the captain of the first team, Marco the Phoenix. The crew's voice trembled. What? Cora was shocked, and then he said loudly without hesitation, "Notify the center, get ready for battle." He found us and is coming towards us. A team member shouted loudly. Everyone turned back immediately, and then they saw the tall and thin figure. The speed suddenly became extremely fast, running all the way. Pick up the dust, the target is very clear, it is them. Shoot the gun, fire the flare, quick. Cora shouted quickly, attack. Although the team members were nervous, they moved quickly. Bang, boom. A dull sound rang out, and a sharp and long cry came from the sky. Afterwards, the entire punk facade was shaken. As the signal flare dragging the tail flame quickly took off, a large sickle-shaped skeleton appeared in the air, with long teeth and dancing claws, which looked very gloomy. At the same moment, the patrols scattered all over the place also shrank their pupils, and found that this had become abnormal. To the southwest, at the Cora team, if there is a situation, quickly support. The 7 squads reacted immediately and walked towards here with their weapons in quick steps. On the inner wall of the base, a group of pirates also moved, and quickly surrounded the place where the signal bomb was located in the southwest direction. Bang! At the Cora team, the players have already started to attack. The sniper rifle was well aimed, but every shot hit was Marco's phantom. Hit, miss. The players were a little nervous. It's really worthy of being Marco. In just a few tens of seconds, Marco was already approaching them. Abandon long shots and prepare for melee combat. Cora ordered loudly, and the team members rushed towards Marco in front of them. 7-1, even if the enemy is the famous Whitebeard Pirates, they will never be afraid. It's been found out, it's really bad. Marco was also nervous, feeling very troublesome. He quickly ran towards the front, and when he saw that group of people were already coming towards him, he couldn't help narrowing his eyes. Let's take care of these 7 people first. 10 seconds later, the two sides quickly approached in a fast run. The first was a team member holding a rifle and pressing it directly in front of Marco's eyes. Bang! The player shot without hesitation, but the next moment, his expression changed drastically. The shot that was so close at hand didn't hit. After a short while, he was punched heavily in the stomach, causing the player to shoot. The whole body was shaken, and he flew out heavily towards the rear, which was a full 20 meters away. In a short time, other crew members have also surrounded him, and a small-scale group fight started neatly. But in the end, the outcome was instantly divided. Marco roamed among the 6 as agile as a swimming fish, and he could instantly kill one person with a punch and a kick. In just 5 seconds, 5 figures had already flown out and fell heavily to the ground, losing the ability to move. You're the only one left. Looking at the young man in front of him, Marco narrowed his eyes. Cora was sweating profusely, and the pressure was too much. Such a terrifying powerhouse is almost at the level of a cadre, and he is not an opponent at all. Call. Before his eyes, Marco who? This chapter is not over. Click on the next page to continue reading. Suddenly disappeared. Kayla's complexion changed greatly, and he roared, "Leaf shield." The rustling voice sounded, and the leaves suddenly appeared in the sky, blocking Kayla's body. Immediately after that, a terrifying attack was printed on it. Cora spat out a mouthful of blood, and was directly knocked out by the air, and the leaves scattered all over the sky. Oh, there is still some strength. Marco strode forward, and the figure disappeared again. Cora squatted on the ground and slammed her hands up. Dead leaf murderer. Shish. Like a hidden weapon, the leaves in the sky flew wildly in all directions, turning into a sharp hidden weapon and rushing out. Unable to see the enemy, he simply chose such a 360-degree attack without dead ends. The Death God pirates really deserved their reputation. Marco's figure appeared, and blue flames burned on his body, flickering to avoid the hidden weapon-like leaves. Even the strength of ordinary crew members is also so terrifying. Quote. 2 seconds later, Marco appeared in front of Cora and said softly, "But, it's over." Kayla looked helpless. "The other party is too powerful, this is the gap between heaven and earth." Marco stretched out his fists, ready to attack, just then. "There, ready to attack." Ka-ka-ka-ka-ka. A series of gun bolts sounded, and Marco tightened his body and stopped his right hand that was ready to attack. Chapter 187 Come to Fight. There was a sigh of relief in Cora's eyes, but there was still sweat on his face. He was so close to the terrifying white-bearded crew member that he had no doubt that the opponent could kill him in a single move. A full 200 people came here, spread out, and surrounded Marco and Cora in the field. "Don't move, or we'll shoot right away." From a distance, Grass's voice came over, his eyes as sharp as eagles. 200 people came the fastest, and more people were rushing here. Marco narrowed his eyes slightly, and he had already seen the dust in the distance. He was a little shocked. He didn't expect that the Death God High Z group had developed to such a scale. Is there already so many people? Marco didn't move, so many crew members were very troublesome for him. For a time, the scene was quiet, except for the crew of the Death God pirates who dared to come here. Only Cora's heavy breathing was left. 3 minutes later, the cadres of the Reaper also came here. Almost all the crew members of the pirates came here, and there were thousands of people, and the place was surrounded by water, and Marco could not escape even with his wings. "Now, I'm in the wolf's den." Marco had sweat oozing out of his forehead. He had already estimated the Death God pirates very high, but he still underestimated it. The crew members of the Death God pirates who surrounded Marco looked at the familiar faces in the field and were extremely surprised. Especially the new crew members, their pupils contracted, and they were shocked. "It's Whitebeard, Marco of the 4 Emperors Whitebeard pirates, he actually came here. Marco is surrounded by us, I'm not dreaming." He didn't dare to act rashly, he was obviously afraid of our cadres. The crowd slowly dispersed, and a figure slowly came here, followed by 4 or 5 people, but the aura was absolutely different from these ordinary crew members. "It's Captain Bucky, here comes the captain." Bucky's face was stern, he came here slowly, looked into the field, and when he saw the figure and confirmed his identity, his eyes narrowed slightly. "Captain of the 1st Division of the Whitebeard Pirates, Marco the Phoenix, what are you doing here?" Bucky asked loudly. "You declared war on us, don't you know the purpose of my coming?" Marco chuckled. Cora next to her was nervous and sweat dripping from her face. "Oh, are you here for trouble?" Bucky strode into it and slowly approached Marco. "You are the captain of the 1st Division, and so am I, and we are here to try, who is stronger." Marco narrowed his eyes, then smiled. How bold. He just gave up on Cora and walked towards Bucky. The group of Death God pirates formed a circle, leaving a wide space in the middle, looking at the 2 people in the center with excitement in their eyes. The captains of the 1st divisions of the 2 pirates are going to fight, which is really exciting. Slowly, the 2 approached each other, and just as Bucky clenched his fists and was about to attack, the phone bug in his arms suddenly rang. With a frown, Bucky answered the phone bug. "Hello. Bucky, bring him to see me." A voice came from the phone bug, which made Bucky's face look strange, and then he looked at Marco. "Come with me, the boss wants to see you." After speaking, he turned around without caring, and led the way ahead. Marco was stunned for a moment, then reacted with a smile on his face. "The captain of the Death Pirates. I'm really curious about what kind of person he is." With the cadres taking the lead, the ordinary crew members will naturally not take action without authorization. They watched nervously, the contact between the 2 sides, until the figures of Bucky and Marco disappeared here. The Whitebeard pirates, that's Whitebeard, they came to find the captain. "It's too powerful, the captain, even let Whitebeard and the others come to the door. I don't know what it is for, it doesn't look like the situation is very good." The crew members whispered, and the Cora team was quickly lifted up and entered into the treatment. After Glass approached Cora, he asked in a low voice, "How do you feel?" "Strong, Too strong, our team has no ability to resist. Chorus said solemnly, clenching her fists quietly, we are still too weak. Glass narrowed his eyes and shook his heart. At this point, Bucky had led Marco into the heavily guarded base. Marco swiped casually, seeing everything here. After seeing the advanced weapons in the hands of the pirates, as well as the indifference and serious aura on their faces, my heart was slightly heavy. This group of people is indeed not ordinary people. Bang bang bang. When they came to the place where the cadres of the death god were stationed, Bucky knocked on the heavy door. Then, the door trembled slightly and rumbled open. The two walked in one after the other, and Marco's eyes were sharp and swept inside. All the members are here. Mark Kokwang was very solemn. This is a large room that covers an area of more than 1,000 square meters. It is very spacious. It is a gym that members use to train their bodies. At this moment, when Yang Qing sat cross-legged on the top box, he lowered his head and looked down at Marco. Marco, what are you doing here? Yang Qing said slowly, the overlord domineering aura suddenly spread out. Buzz. The air trembled, and Marco's pupils immediately shrank. A demonstration. Oh, let me walk around. Marco said casually, looking at the members of the Death God Pirates one by one. This chapter is not over. Click on the next page to continue reading. At a glance, it made his heart even more solemn. This group of people, it seems, are not easy to mess with. Thor, Ernie Liu, Drizzt, Bucky, Glades, and, Vice Captain, Dillons. On the reward order, Marco had already studied these people, but his observation revealed that this group of people was far more terrifying than what he saw on the reward order. In other words, their strength is far more than the large number on the reward order. This is Lao Tzu's territory. Wouldn't it be appropriate for you not to give me a reasonable explanation? Yang Qing asked in a deep voice, the domineering arrogance exuding even more domineering, terrifying aura. Even the walls in the room were scraped out crack. It's on par with Dad's aura. Marco's expression changed slightly. No wonder you dare to provoke us. Ha, I want an explanation. Max laughed. Then, I'm here to fight. In an instant, the eyes of the entire Death God pirate group were all focused on him, and they were instantly suppressed by the eyes of the pirate group that exceeded 2 billion. No one would want to bear the pressure, and Marco was behind him. The hairs stood up. A fight. Yang Qing's eyes were indifferent. Then you have to be prepared that you won't be able to go back today. Chapter 188 _ Yang Qing's words were very plain, but they contained a strong domineering force. This is a battle between pirates, and the arrival of Marco is definitely not friendly, and doing anything has a price. If Marco's strength is not good today and he can't pass this level, then he has to explain it here. The price is life and blood. Invading my territory without authorization, I think you have made all the preparations. The cold language had no killing intent, but it made the atmosphere of the scene suddenly rise to a higher level. Ha, let me try. Marco laughed. Yang Qing was still sitting cross-legged, looking down at the bottom with an indifferent expression. Naturally, he would not make a move. King to king, general, Marco's identity, but it is impossible to be in the same position as him. Bucky laughed, touched each other, and walked out. But Dillons reached out his hand and stopped him. The position of the captain of the first division of the Whitebeard is no less than that of their vice-captain. This battle is naturally mine. Dillons stepped out, his face full of indifference. When Marco saw Dillons, his eyes suddenly narrowed, and he secretly said in his heart, Ghost Dillons, the terrible guy with a bounty of nearly 500 million. It's even the deputy captain of the Death God. Did this guy take action in person? If you win Dillons, you can leave here and bring our information to Whitebeard. Yang Qing said lightly, also tell him that I am looking forward to fighting him in the future. What? Marco looked at Yang Qing in shock. This young man was trying to fight with his father in vain. Wasn't he joking? Or is he bragging? But it can be seen from the expressions of the latter and all the crew members present, the seriousness and confidence in those eyes. It's started. Marco, let's try it. Try it, do you have the strength to leave here today? Dylan's voice sounded. The two were 100 meters apart, and the momentum suddenly became stronger. The domineering arrogance that filled the field slowly dissipated. Yang Qing naturally doesn't know how to do anything, and he also wants to see what kind of rank the crew of the Whitebeard pirates are. Dylan's strength, he can see clearly, whether he can compete with the crew of Whitebeard number 2. Come on then, Ghost Dylan's. Marco narrowed his eyes, staring at Dylan's. He wasn't at all worried that the other crew members present would sneak up on him. It was a fair duel. If the crew of the Reaper didn't have any energy at all, then even if he died, he would laugh at him. Such a pirate ship is not worthy of Father's eyes at all. Call. Dylan's took one step and disappeared directly in place. The next moment, he reappeared and was in front of Marco. The pitch-black fist slammed heavily towards the latter's face. Soon, Marco's eyes flashed, and he also punched, but with a burning blue flame. Bang! This punch caused a circle of invisible ripples directly in the field, like a blooming lotus. Suddenly, the next moment, the figures of the two suddenly disappeared. When it appeared, the ground 10 meters apart was torn apart, but the legs of the two collided fiercely with each other. Marco's right foot had a blue phoenix flame, and Dylan's right leg, the space above, is distorted and wrapped with a strong power of space. The battle started in an instant, and at this moment, the battle between the two was incredibly fast. The people present could hardly see it. Dylan's almost teleported, he was elusive, he struck out and disappeared, but at the same time, Marco disappeared, the number 2 crew member on the Whitebeard ship, as if he could sense Dylan where he will appear in the next second. Every time, he was able to resist Dylan's attack in a fraction of a second, which surprised the crew members present. Bang 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 bang. On the ground, violent noises continued to be heard, and in just a moment, many deep pits appeared in a radius of 200 meters. Boom! With another sound, Marco's fist appeared and bombarded directly on the wall. The wall shook, and a huge deep pit appeared. The hair on Dylan's head was blown by the strong wind, and there was a cold sweat on his forehead. This punch almost hit him on the forehead. Space Crush. Dylan's took another step forward, and without hesitation, directly displayed his spatial ability. The space in front of Kachacha began to shatter like glass, and Marco's figure just appeared in the space that began to be divided and shattered. As soon as the latter appeared, he immediately sensed the terrifying vacuum-shattering power, and his whole body instantly burned with blue flames. Then, Marco clenched his right fist and punched it hard. Bang! This punch directly penetrated the shattered space, and appeared in front of Dylan's roughly and directly. The latter's face changed, and a twisted vortex surrounded his right fist, and then greeted him behind. Boom! On the ground, with the two as the center, a deep pit appeared. The dust was flying and the wind was blowing. The figures of the two people changed their positions extremely fast, and at this moment they became still. The crew members watching the battle on the side were shocked. Shocked by the strength of the two of them, the movements of the two men just now were almost unbelievable. Dylan's is in control of the space, and he can understand it, but Marco is so fast that everyone is a little surprised. The two fists collided tightly, and after 3 seconds of stalemate, Dylan's expression changed slightly, and his arms trembled and trembled. Then the next moment, his entire body took 3 steps backwards. Just as he retreated, Marco was surrounded by blue dazzling eyes, strode forward, and attacked with both fists left and right, making an air boom. Dylan's raised his arms and kept resisting. The latter's attack became more and more violent. After the fist was finished, it rose into the air and raised it high. This chapter is not over. Click on the next page to continue reading. Legs slashed down. From this moment on, the battle had a slight inclination, and Marco clearly had the upper hand. Marco, who was in the air, kept attacking with his legs, and his huge strength descended from the air and kicked directly on Dylan's, who was constantly resisting. Let the latter keep retreating, and in the end, it is through the ability to travel through space, the body slowly becomes virtual, and he needs to adjust his breathing. His chi pulse has already begun to become disordered. But just as Dylan's entered the space, a hand chased him arrogantly. What? Dylan's was startled. Chapter 189 _ Dylan's shoulder was stuck by Marco at this moment, which was nothing, but what really shocked Dylan's was that the latter went straight through the space, and seemed to follow him to open the void of the space. Caught myself. Then, a huge force directly pulled him out of the space. The ability of the space fruit failed for the first time. Marco held Dylan's with one hand, and the other hand was burning with blue flames, and slapped Dylan's in the cheek fiercely. I can't dodge. That hand pressed against him like an iron hoop, making it difficult for him to dodge. Dylan's shouted in his heart, if you can't dodge, you won't dodge. He suddenly clenched his fists, the dark armament color instantly covered with domineering, and the power of space also came out, and then slapped Marco in the cheek brazenly. Marco also saw the determination in Dylan's eyes, his eyes narrowed, and madness appeared on his face. Do you want a tough bar? Come on, let's see who can't survive first. The next moment, Marco's fist hit Dylan's directly in the face, making a loud bang, like a dull thunder, and immediately after that, Dylan's fist also hit Marco's face in the face. The same huge sound spread throughout the huge room. The people present all blinked fiercely at this moment. It hurts to look at. Drizzt grinned and breathed. Then, they saw the necks of the two crooked, and almost at the same time, they were directly hit by the huge force and flew out in different directions. Afterwards, he fell to the ground, smashing the ground into pieces, and the dust filled the air, covering the figures of the two of them. Cough cough. After 3 full seconds, Marco just stood up, one of his cheeks was swollen high, and he spat bloody saliva to the side, and his eyes kept shaking. Trembling. This kid is really cruel, it hurts me to death. Immediately following, Dylan's also stood up, one side of his face was swollen, and his fists creaked. Pain, not ordinary pain. The fists of these two people are all strange forces that can smash walls and rocks. It is conceivable that such a force hits each other, how sour it feels. The moment they hit each other, their minds were blank, and they were directly stunned. It took 3 seconds before they slowly recovered. Mad, it's cool, Dylan's shouted, took one step, and disappeared directly. Marco touched the ground with his feet, and the dust on the ground formed a small vortex, and then his figure disappeared suddenly. The next moment, the two met face to face again, and their fists smashed towards each other fiercely. Bang! A huge bang sounded almost at the same time, and the two eyes trembled, staring at each other. This punch hit the cheeks of the two again, the pain swept through the whole body, and the necks were crooked. Hey, my mother, after this battle, both of them will have concussions, right? It hurts. Bucky inhaled fiercely. He was a little lucky that he didn't play by himself. Are they crazy? They just gave up their skills and fought hard. This is a brutal and unreasonable fight between the flesh. Luo and Corazon also spoke, their eyes full of shock. Afterwards, they saw the two people who punched in the field, gritted their teeth and their eyes fluctuated violently, stood up straight, and then clenched their fists again. Bang! There was another huge sound, and both of them trembled. Enough, man! Marco roared indistinctly, both cheeks swollen up on the left and right. You're not bad. Dylan's also shouted loudly, his entire head gaining a lot of weight. Then, the two clenched their fists and greeted each other fiercely. Unsurprisingly, there was another drum-like sound. The two of them couldn't stand anymore this time, and they were thrown flying again, hitting the ground. Hoo 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 hoo. A huge gasp sounded in the room, and the two slowly stood up, staring at each other fiercely. Mad, it hurts. At this moment, both of them shouted loudly in their hearts. Outside the arena, watching the two people in this battle, everyone wanted to laugh inexplicably. The result of the two men's arrogant battle was that the other's face was almost as swollen as a pig's head. These two guys can't tell the difference between the winner and the loser, let's fight like this. Yang Qing's face was also dumbfounded. Looking at Dylan's, he had never seen the opponent fight like this before. As for Marco, Who would have thought that the number 2 crew member of the Whitebeard pirates would be so crazy? Does this mean that men have a heart for close combat? It's really cool to call your fist into the opponent's face, but can you tell the difference? At this time, the 2 people in the field stood up again. After a few fists, the 2 almost stunned each other, and their eyes were twisted and shaken. After approaching by induction, it turned out to be fighting again. Bang! Marco punched Dylan's, causing the latter to shake his body. Dylan's clenched his fists and punched Marco hard. In this way, within a minute, the 2 of them were covered in injuries, but they still stood on the spot with their will and hit each other. It's a joke. Yang Qing smiled and shook his head, then he drank. It's a shame to separate them for me. Below, Bucky and Drizzt laughed and entered the arena. As a result, when the 2 were in front of them, the 2 were still punching each other. Bucky and Drizzt rudely separated the 2. This chapter is not over. Click on the next page to continue reading. And then pulled it in front of Yang Qing. Jumping down from a height, Yang Qing stood in front of the 2 of them. Luo, Mariah let them sober up. After giving an order, Luo stepped forward and started tossing the 2 of them. The 2 people who were separated were indeed exhausted, their vision was blurred, and they slowly woke up with the treatment. You guy, you're a man. It's been a long time since I had such an enemy who could fight me in a hearty battle. Marco said loudly. You're not bad too, very strong. The crew of Whitebeard is really powerful. Dylan's also said loudly. Quiet. Luo patted Marco's face and let the latter take a cold breath, shaking his body in pain. Dylan's laughed, but the smile affected the wound on his face, and he was sweating in pain. It's a farce if you 2 are tied, Yang Qing said helplessly. The combat power of these 2 guys is not much different, and it is indeed difficult to tell the winner, so they chose to fight each other in close combat to compete for willpower and endurance, but the result is still indistinguishable. Chapter 190 The Battle of the Overlord. Marco, you can get out of here. Your strength has won the respect of the Death God pirates. When Yang Qing's words came out, Marco narrowed his eyes slightly, and then smiled. The Death God pirates really live up to their reputation. I will wait for you with my dad and the others. Then he turned his head and looked at Dylan's. And you, our battle is not over yet. Dylan's narrowed his eyes and said loudly, of course. Later, the crew brought a jar of wine. Yang Qing poured a bowl for the swollen Marco who looked like a pig's head, and said solemnly, since the battle is over, I will toast you on behalf of the Death God pirates. Regardless of your relationship with me, your strength has earned our respect. After speaking, Yang Qing drank it, and the other crew members of the Death God pirates also drank this glass of wine. This is how my death pirates treat guests. Marco was stunned, and after he reacted, he also picked up the wine bowl and drank it all into his mouth. After that, Marco came out of Punk Hassad, and came to his small boat with a bruised face, facing the sea breeze and breaking the waves, heading towards the depths of the New World. Death pirates, I am waiting for your arrival. What a powerful and different group of people. Marco stood on the boat and looked at Punk Hassad, who was getting farther and farther away, and his heart was complicated. He thought of the powerful deputy captain and had to admit that that guy had the qualifications to fight him. His physical quality, fruit ability, and even two-color domineering were almost on par with him. And those crew members are quite reliable companions. Marco left, but the people on the Death Pirate ship did not relax, but became more dignified. Drive out the tigers, and we should go on an expedition next. Yang Qing stood in the middle of the crowd with awe. We are surrounded by powerful enemies, and we will not give them a chance. Prepare for a while. After 7 days, the whole ship will attack and take down all the 4 pirate groups for me. The entrance to the New World belongs to our Death God pirates. The crew members were full of enthusiasm, and they promised, yes, Captain. 7 days later, the number of crew members of the Death God pirates has reached as many as 4,000. Standing on the island of Punk Hassad, it is so densely packed that it makes the scalp tingle. Today, they are about to go out, and the forces of the 4 parties want to unite to conquer them, but they will not expect Yongqing to be so decisive, and they will attack first. The Death God pirates are not afraid of them, but regard them as advancing. Ladder. Prepare to fight, 4,000 people, divided and attacked. I give you the greatest freedom. There is only one condition. You must destroy the enemy and conquer their forces. I want these 4 islands to be planted with the banner of my Death God pirates. Yongqing stood at the highest point, and his voice was loud and spread throughout the audience. More than 4,000 pirates looked up at their captain with admiration on their faces. Behind the figure, the Scythe Skull pirate flag fluttered in the wind, with a particularly strong momentum. The first team, the Wind Howl Pirates, the crew, Drizzt, Corazon. The second team, the Kachu Pirates, the crew, Anilu, Luo. Team 3, Chambord Pirates, crew, Dillons, Bucky. Team 4, Tiger Lion Pirates, crew, Lucifer, Gleister. The above are the main expedition personnel, and the exhibitors below are responsible for the captains of each team. A team of 1,000 people is ready to set off and act immediately. As for my team, Yongqing paused, then said, only 100 men are needed. More than 4,000 people were all shocked. This is a powerful pirate group that is no less than the size of the Death God pirates. Does the captain mean that one person faces a pirate group? I want them to know that the strength of the Death God pirates is definitely not something that a bunch of garbage can handle. Let them know our strength. Let them know what is called death. Yongqing's majestic voice resounded throughout the audience, sonorous and powerful, and the domineering look of the overlord spread to all directions, enhancing his momentum. Finally, Yongqing gave an order. Now, go! Roar! More than 4,000 pirates made a huge roar that resounded throughout the island in unison, and then completed the distribution of power at an extremely fast speed. Half an hour later, the 4 teams formed a long dragon and ran quickly towards the coast. This was the first large-scale battle of the Death God pirates, and the first time they acted separately. The cadres have their own important roles to play. And this battle is of great significance to the Death God pirates. This is an important decisive battle to establish the ownership of the entrance to the New World. If successful, the Death God pirates can be said to be able to successfully ascend the overlord position at the entrance of the New World in one fell swoop. Although it is still some distance away from the 4 emperors, it is not far. Flags flying with sickle skeletons sailed in the sea, slowly leaving Punk Hassad. Yongqing and Glades also boarded the huge Reaper. Hundreds of pirate crew members quickly began to control the ship. With a bang, the gun barrels on the wall of the Reaper protruded one after another. The sound of woo-woo sounded, and it sailed very quickly. Ha ha, the boss has already set off, and we have to do our best. Baki shouted loudly from the bow, brothers, set sail. Yes. More than 1,000 pirates responded with a loud roar, and after the ship left the port for 10 miles, 4 ships. This chapter is not over. Click on the next page to continue reading. The team moved apart. At this time, the Death God pirates had a huge scale, with more than 40 medium-sized ships, and countless backbone crew members with a bounty of more than 200 million. As for those below 200 million, there were countless. This is the first battle after the Death God pirates have grown rapidly and become a major force. What kind of situation will their battle bring about? In a battle of 1 enemy and 4, will victory be won? Will the overlord at the entrance to the New World be won in one fell swoop? At the same time that the Reaper started to move, the wandering forces that were seen in all directions on the sea began to panic and kept spreading messages to the outside world. The Death God pirates are out, so scary. More than 40 pirate ships, all under the banner of Sickle and Skeleton, headed by the Reaper, riding the wind and waves, they have to make a big move. The figure at the bow of the largest flagship is Lucifer, the god of death, the great pirate with a bounty of 600 million. His bounty has risen again, and has reached 600 million. Almost, he is approaching the 4th emperor. Even the backbone crew members, some famous crew members, his information was turned out at this moment. Chapter 191 _. The entire sea area is boiling, and the Death God pirates have more than 40 pirate ships, and each ship has a sickle and skull pirate flag fluttering in the wind. And on each pirate ship, there are at least 100 pirates on board, and their faces, arms, or backs are engraved with tattoos of sickle and skeletons, clearly showing their identities. When the huge fleet reached a certain place, it scattered in an instant. They were divided into 4 teams. The Reaper at the front was extremely fast, piercing the waves. The crew members on it were all elites. To all around, the other 3 teams quickly separated from the Reaper and went in different directions. This sea area shook, and the action of the Reaper has ushered in the attention of a large number of powerhouses. How long is it until the Tiger and Lion pirates? Yang Qing stood at the bow of the boat, his black hair fluttering slightly as the sea breeze blew his robes. There's still half an hour, and now the quartet forces are probably aware of our actions. Glades replied. Hee, if you know it, you will know, what can they do to us? Yang Qing's eyes were sharp and full of confidence. At this moment, his power was deeply compressed in his body. After swallowing the Qilin fruit, his power had already broken through again. How powerful he was at this moment, even he had no bottom. It just so happened that this battle could let him play to his heart's content. The other 3 teams don't know what will happen. Glades was a little worried. Don't worry, they are all partners, I believe in them. Yang Qing said with a smile, it's Glades, you have to be careful in this battle. When I fight, I may explode with all my strength. Might not be able to take care of you. Quote. And you guys, be careful with Lao Su, don't lose your life. Turning his head, Yang Qing shouted to the vast crew again. The crew was stunned for a moment, then laughed. Don't worry, Captain, we'll be fine. Yang Qing smiled, then slowly floated up, standing in front of the statue of death. Time passed slowly, and soon a quarter of an hour passed. At this time, the Analu team had already reached their destination. Looking at the island ahead and the dense pirate ships at the port, Analu's eyes narrowed. Is this right here? It's right here. Luo nodded. What are you going to do? What should I do? Analu smiled rarely. He looked towards the sky. Look there. Luo Yi stayed and looked up at the sky. The crew on the ship, more than 1,000 pirates, all looked into the sky, and then they all inhaled. What a huge thundercloud. There is lightning in the sky, such a dense lightning. This is the captain, it is the captain who changed the sky. It's amazing, as expected of Thor Analu, our captain, too strong. Boom. In the sky, huge lightning bolts moved like snakes, and the dense thunderclouds grew bigger and bigger, covering the whole island. On the island ahead, thunder and lightning crisscrossed, and the terrifying coercion caused the entire island to fall into a tense atmosphere. The Death God pirates, it's them, they actually came. Leading the team is Thor Analu, and Luo, the Death Doctor, Luo, the terrible guy who dared to kidnap the Tianlong people. The captain, they're knocking at the door. On the island, the crew of the Kachu pirates fell into panic, looking at the pirate fleet slowly approaching above the sea in horror. Deep in the island, in a palace. It's Thor, is it Analu? A big man wearing a captain's hat and holding a western sword asked solemnly. That's right, it's him, the guy who ate the natural thunder fruit. It's very difficult to deal with. The partner next to him replied immediately, Rex, what should we do? Fight, I heard that they are this time. One is divided into 4, and they are aimed at our quartet forces, which is clearly a strong confidence. Rex's eyes flashed, and then he said, try their combat effectiveness first, and then, surrender without a word is not in line with our identity. Boom. Just as they finished speaking, the thunder in the sky suddenly became much louder, and there was a loud shout from outside. The attack is coming, they are attacking, a lot of people, too strong. Rex's expression changed, and then he said, so fast. As soon as he lifted his foot, Rex immediately walked towards the outside, and 5 seconds later, he saw the scene outside. Immediately fell into shock, like destroying the sky and destroying the earth. In the sky, huge thunder snakes slashed toward the entire island, and the thunder snakes were densely packed, as if endless. In just a short time, this island turned into a hell of thunder and lightning. Ah ah ah! The continuous screams sounded, and the thunder and lightning attacked indiscriminately. The ordinary pirates standing on the island, being wiped by the high-heat thunder and lightning, would immediately fall to the ground, and their life and death were unknown. Even powerful people dodge all over the place with fearful faces under this terrifying thunder and lightning. This is a terrifying thunder and lightning. Moreover, Rex had already seen the ships of the Death God pirates approaching from a long distance away, and the pirates held their weapons and attacked them frantically with a grin on their faces. The two people in the front are 2 meters tall and their upper body is naked. Naked, holding a golden stick in his hand, his face was indifferent like a god, the other was gloomy, with a western sword in his hand. All the crew members who approached him were separated from their limbs and screamed in horror. This chapter is not over. Click on the next page to continue reading. These two people can conquer thousands of troops. Rex's eyes were very solemn, and then he waved his hand suddenly. Everyone is ready, fight immediately. Boom. There was a big explosion on the ground, and a large part of the crew was blown beyond recognition by lightning. In this short period of time, the thunderbolt had wiped out nearly half of their combat power. This terrifying coverage attack made Rex extremely shocked, and his heart kept twitching. Assemble! Assembly! In the island, there was a large sound, and at the same time, the signal bomb exploded in the sky, guiding the lost crew members. The Death God pirates came too suddenly, and the attack was even more violent, completely caught them off guard. A single negligence has already fallen into a disadvantage. Looking at the crew members who were constantly howling and screaming, Rex narrowed his eyes, and his heart was extremely heavy. Is this the combat power of the Death Pirates? It's terrifying. The two people who were advancing in the distance could hardly encounter any obstacles. The sky was dark, and thunder and lightning were crisscrossing. The two men strode forward, and no one could resist them for a moment. Chapter 192 All Arrivals. Above the sky, thunder and lightning roared down, and the dark clouds blocked the light here, making the whole island a little dark. The wildly roaring lightning dashed everywhere, knocking countless people to the ground. The scene like the end of the world made the entire Kachu pirates almost collapse, and the lightning like a god left a deep impression on their hearts. Ah, help, it's terrible, this is hell, it's hell. Devil, that is the devil, who will save me? Over time, the crew's hearts were completely broken. Rex's eyes were full of solemnity and helplessness. He speeded up to gather the crew, but in the end he also collected about 2,000 people, and then sparsely rushed towards the other party. But on the way, they faced the thunder and lightning rushing from the sky, and they kept falling bombardment. The large number of crew members he had just gathered were dispersed immediately. These two people, Rex took the cadres beside him. His heart was burning with anger. Kill them. Yes, the cadres responded loudly, keeping footsteps, dodging the thunder and lightning that seemed to see them in the sky. Opposite the Rex crowd, Analu's eyes were indifferent. He had already seen a dozen people rushing towards him in front of him. Is this the goal of this battle? His eyes were full of indifference and disdain, and Analu's eyes were like those of a god, a group of ants. With a flick of the long stick, it pointed directly at the opposite side, and the dense lightning and brilliance began to gather, and then 3 seconds later, like a cannonball, it blasted out directly from the tip of the long stick. This huge force brought up the dust on the ground at an unbelievable speed. Almost instantly, it was in front of Rex's eyes. Hurry up! Rex, who had a bounty of nearly 500 million, changed his face greatly. This huge thunderbolt had a radius of 3 meters, like a laser beam, stabbing him so much that he couldn't open his eyes. The dozen people who rushed forward were all shocked and terrified at this moment. They scattered frantically, and then watched helplessly as the lightning beam fell in front of the person who couldn't dodge. A terrifying light burst out, and a powerful explosion appeared on the ground. Directly smashed the whole person into pieces. Because, quote, a dozen people screamed in pain, but in an instant, one of their cadres was instantly killed. This move is too powerful. How did you develop it? Even Luo, shocked at this moment, asked. The captain taught me. It's called a super electromagnetic gun, Anilu said lightly, and with a flick of his finger, a golden coin appeared. After my improvement, it has a very strong lethality. The corners of Luo's mouth trembled, not only extremely strong, but brutal. After that, Anilu and Luo continued to move forward. They had already seen the dozen people who were besieging them, and their faces became a little dignified. No problem, Luo, Anilu asked. Don't worry, this group of rubbish has not been placed in my eyes yet. Luo replied, staring closely at the group of people who had already arrived in front of him. My cultivation is not in vain. With the trembling of both hands, a dark-armed color appeared domineering. I'm going to tear you apart. Rex, who had the intention of surrendering at the beginning, roared wildly, strode forward, and the whole person followed, and turned into a huge chimpanzee, 10 meters tall, violent. The breath spreads everywhere. In just an instant, the two were surrounded by it. Kill them. Anilu's eyes were indifferent, cold and ruthless, and he spoke lightly, and then the blue lightning began to flicker, and the next moment, it disappeared. Luo also moved his footsteps and rushed forward. Behind them, a large number of the backbone crew of the Death God pirates have also rushed over. In an instant, the war began. On the same side as Anilu, it was Bucky's side, and the Death God pirates slowly approached the coast. Unlike Anilu, on Bucky's side, there are already a large number of pirates waiting for them, and a large number of pirates are standing densely on the long coastline along the coast. Death pirates, brothers, smashed them to pieces. Seeing the shamboard pirates of Bucky and others, they roared loudly, and the muzzles of each cannon spit out crimson flames, and the pitch-black shells attacked the fleet. There were at least thousands of shells, covering the sky. This spectacular scene directly shocked the crew of the Death God pirates. Dillons took a step forward, his face indifferent. Space shift. Buzz. There was a shock between the sky and the earth, and then everyone was surprised to see that the overwhelming shells suddenly disappeared. A second later, it appeared behind the shampoo pirates, and then fell down. Boom. A terrifying explosion occurred, the flames burst out of Lao Gao, and countless pirates were blown away, their stumps and arms flew around, and the blood flowed into the sea in an instant. Attack! Baki shouted from the front. Roar! Behind them, the crew members of the Death God pirates were so imposing, they attacked frantically towards the coast. Space, shatter. Dillons clenched his fists, the dark-armed color on his fists was domineering, and the spinning power of space began to twist, and then accompanied him to punch towards the island. Card wipe. Half of the sky seemed to be shattered, like glass. A torn interface appeared, and the members of the shampoo pirates who happened to be in this interface immediately separated, and blood sprayed out. In the same step, the whole island turned out to be crooked, and there was a... This chapter is not over. Click on the next page to continue reading. The sub-area slowly sloped down. The sky is broken. The island of Rosa is going to sink. That person is too scary. Countless pirates were terrified, watching Dillons beat Rosa Island like this, which made them think Whitebeard came here. At this moment, Dillons has initially possessed the terrifying attack power of Whitebeard. Of course, there is no way to compare the two. Whitebeard can really destroy the existence of an island. Dillons' strength at the moment is still far behind. Kill me, Dillons roared, and the pirate crew in the rear roared up to the sky, rushing forward with excitement on their faces. At the same time, Drizzt and Corazon also came to the island where the Windhowl pirates were. Ernst. Trista looked at the figure standing on the shore of the island, and a murderous intent flashed in his eyes. Let them all be silent. Corazon glanced at Drizzt, his heart moved, and then he rubbed his fingers. Crack. A circle of masks spread silently, and in an instant, all the sounds within the island disappeared. Among the crew of the Windroar pirates, not a single sound could be heard. Quietly again, the cannonballs of the Death God pirates shot towards the island, and before they found it, they had quietly landed. Then, explode. Chapter 193 Sword Intent. A strange scene happened. There were a large number of pitch-black shells, but until they fell and exploded, there was no sound at all. In this scene, everyone in the Wind Roar Pirates could hardly tell what was going on. When they saw the cannonball hit the ground and burst into the sky, it was already too late. Kill! Drizzt roared, and the crew behind him rushed towards the island. An eagle called out. An eagle spread its wings and flew high. Countless dead leaves swept away in all directions like hidden weapons, and there were also the drums kept ringing, and where the sound waves in the island reached, explosions continued. Low temperature, freeze. Longbottom took big strides, and with his low drink, the sea not far from the coast was completely frozen, and the cold air continued, rapidly extending toward the island, but in an instant, nearly 100 people were caught by him. Frozen into ice cubes. This time, I won't be defeated by you again. Longbottom's eyes were full of anger and killing intent. Beside him, Erdish stood like a ghost, with a strange black mist emitting from his body, moving towards the island. Float past. Hornster, is this what you said about the strength of this group of people? The captain of the Wind Roar Pirates asked with a gloomy face, but what he faced was the confused expression of Hornster. No one could hear the sound he made, or in other words, all the sounds around him disappeared, and all the members of the Wind Roar Pirates were deaf, unable to hear any sound, and they became one without ear pirates. Soon, Drizzt and others rushed to the shore, and then quickly fought with the enemy. On the Reaper, the shadow of an island finally appeared in front of Yangqing. It's finally here. Yangqing sighed, and just now, 3 consecutive phone calls spread the news to him, proving that the 3 teams had reached their destination. This is a battle that is blooming everywhere. Since the other party wants to be 4-on-1, then they will play 1-on-4, so that the world can thoroughly understand the terrifying combat power of the Death Pirates, and let them know who is the entrance to this new world. Who is the Overlord? This is Yangqing's unbridled oath, and it is also his high-profile first step on the world stage. Soon, the Reaper approached the coast. Yangqing glanced over and saw nearly 10,000 pirates. 13 cadres at the front were looking at him gloomily. Alert! Prepare to fight! Cried Glaster. Boom! On the wall of the Reaper, numerous gun muzzles appeared, and then aimed at the densely packed figures on the coast. Is this the Death God Pirates? It's really impressive. How dare a single ship declare war on my Tiger and Lion Pirates? On the shore of the island, a strong man with a height of 2.5 meters tall, like a tiger and a lion, is majestic and imposing. Very powerful, his whole body exudes a strong domineering. It is the strong landmass of the Tiger-Lion Pirates. From a distance, Yangqing's eyes narrowed, and the domineering arrogance in his body began to swept out, colliding fiercely towards the coast. This tyrannical look is extremely terrifying, and at this moment, the entire sea seems to have surrendered, and it has become quiet, only the sea surface is slightly rippling. As the tyrannical domineering, this is not an ordinary person. Feeling this shocking aura, Lambas narrowed his eyes slightly, then stared, and the same terrifying aura rushed out towards the god of death where Yangqing was. Number away. The 2 domineering auras collided in an instant. Buzz. The sky seemed to be distorted, and a huge crack appeared in the thick dark clouds. Looks like I can enjoy this battle. A smile appeared on Yangqing's face, and his aura was even more domineering. Bang 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 bang. With the advance of the Reaper, the pirate crew members who were standing on the coast fell down one by one. Under this terrifying momentum, the crew of the Tiger-Lion Pirates finally couldn't bear it. Lambas stared, and also increased the output of the Overlord domineering, but what surprised him was that although the pirates on the ship were under great pressure and sweaty, no one fell down. It seems that all the elites came here. The Grim Reaper was getting closer, the muzzle sounded, kakaka, and then aimed at the coast. Attack! Glades ordered without hesitation. Hush shish! A series of shells rushed out of the muzzle and fired towards the coast. At the same time, nearly 1,000 shells were fired. This is the horror of the Reaper. and the electromagnetic gun controlled by Glaives himself began to gather flashing lightning at this moment. 5 seconds later, there was a loud bang, and it shot fiercely towards the island in front. "Ready to fight," Landbass roared, and the crew behind him immediately drew their swords and blocked the attacking shells in the sky. Standing at the bow of the boat, Yang Qing narrowed his eyes and his right hand suddenly stretched out, grabbing forward sharply. This grab, as if grabbing a large space in front, the sea water swayed violently, and then the sea water in a radius of 10 kilometers was directly lifted by it, forming a terrible tsunami, towards the interior of the island. The terrifying waves were 30 or 40 meters high, and as soon as they appeared, the pirates on the coast were terrified. "Tsunami, it's a tsunami. That man, caused the tsunami. Run, run." Before the fight began, the crew of the Tiger Lion pirates had already begun to panic. At the same time, Yang Qing stepped out step by step and walked in the sky. He slowly pulled out the long sword behind him, and then the long sword pointed straight at the island. This chapter is not over. Click on the next page to continue reading. Buzz. A strange force spread over the long sword, and the Longchen sword buzzed and began to tremble, as if excited. Excited, thirsty, longing, Longchen. Today, I will let you start again. Drink up the blood of the enemy. Yang Qing's eyes were full of sword intent. At this moment, there were 13 sword shadows in his eyes. Swipe quickly. The 13 swords of death. Yang Qing stood proudly in the void, his sleeves fluttering, and he began to move toward the island in front of him. He fell into a panic, and the pirates who were running around began to swing their swords. First sword. The long sword stabbed straight out, countless phantoms appeared around his body, the sword shadows fluttered, and the space trembled suddenly. Second sword. Splitting out, the sky is silent, everything is silent. The fifth sword. Yang Qing's movements were slow, but in fact it was extremely fast. He was dancing the sword alone, and the sharp and unparalleled sword intent spread in the air, and the strange fruit power of the control fruit merged into it, making the whole world this place. For a moment, as if only Yang Qing was alone, it became his own world. The 11th sword. When the 11th sword danced, something terrible happened. Landbass punched out, the sky trembled, the huge tsunami was directly smashed by its power, and then fell, and the shells all over the sky exploded piece by piece. The crisis was resolved, but at this moment, he suddenly raised his head and saw Yang Qing standing in the void dancing a sword. In an instant, his expression changed. The void where Yang Qing stood, with a radius of 1,000 meters, began to twist, and the terrifying sword intent seemed to destroy everything, smash everything, and make people terrified from the bottom of their hearts. But this terrifying power has not yet erupted, but is brewing. Chapter 194 The sword intent soaring to the sky distorted the vast void around Yang Qing, as if it had been isolated from the outside world. The space began to shatter, and Yang Qing's figure became blurred. This sword intent was extremely terrifying, and the cold murderous aura lowered the temperature of the world by a few points. The moment Landbass saw it, his face changed. What is that? He couldn't understand what Yang Qing was doing, but he could feel the powerful force that had gathered in that area. Roar! Landbass roared violently in the sky, and his right fist slammed out a dark armament that enveloped him. Tigers and lions, bombard the mountains. Without hesitation at all, Landbass shot directly. This is a punch that can smash a mountain. He once smashed a mountain hill with a radius of 100 meters into pieces. When the punch was punched, the airflow in the space in front of it was a shock, and then everyone could see a twisted line in the sky, meandering, like a long snake towards the piece that was twisted by the sword intent space to go. Yang Qing stood in the void, the power of the 11 swords was completely condensed by him, and he accumulated it to the extreme. At this time, he felt Landbass attack. The wrist trembled slightly, the Longchen sword in Yang Qing's hand turned, and the 12th sword was suddenly released. Buzz! The world trembled violently, and the distorted space began to boil at this moment. The sword energy that he had accumulated soared straight into the sky, sweeping away a large void. He was endless and unparalleled. The power of the 12 deadly swords was forcibly merged into one place at this moment. Space will be shattered. It's the limit, let me try the power of this sword. The 13 deadly swords, combined with the unique understanding of the world of pirates, how powerful will it be? Yang Qing's eyes flickered. Looking at that void has transformed into a tiger and a lion roaring again and again, the punch that attacked him. Among the 4 major forces, the most powerful is the tiger-lion pirates, and the bounty of this landmass has reached a terrifying 550 million. Shish. Yang Qing let go of the shackles of the majestic sword intent. The terrifying sword intent sprayed out wantonly, and he swept away with one sword. Call. And then swept away like a huge incomparable sword. In just an instant, he met the tiger and lion rushing from the void. Poof. A slight sound came out. This sword was only a slight pause, and the sword intent that was swept out violently destroyed the tiger and lion, and then cut into the island. It's so strong. Lambas was shocked. He suddenly exerted force all over his body and gathered his strength. On his arms, there appeared a black and iron-like armament. His muscles were bulging, and the expression on his face became more sinister. Tiger and lion strike, fiercely. Bang! The fists swung out suddenly, the sky began to twist, and there was a large explosion in the air. A large piece of air was directly evacuated by this terrifying punch, and then the punch slammed into the sword intent that had already reached the top of the head. Sizzle! A series of subtle voices came out, and Yang Qing's brewing sword was actually blocked. On the coast, Lambas gasped heavily, staring solemnly at the 2 stalemate attacks in the sky. Puff puff. Another slight voice came out, and the sharp sword intent slowly shattered the terrifying boxing, and then spontaneously cancelled out a large piece, but a part of it shot out directly, heading towards the interior of the island. It was only after Nalan Bass's boxing that the line was changed, and a terrifying scream flew over the heads of the pirates, swept the wind, and then crashed into the building complex built by the pirates. Poof! With another slight sound, the terrifying sword intent directly cut through, and then landed on the island. Boom! The huge building collapsed directly, the smoke and dust were everywhere, and the island was shaking. At the depth of 1,000 meters inside the island, it stretched forward, and a deep trench and gully appeared. This sword went straight to the bottom of the sea, and a lot of seawater, poured directly up, will ditch. The gully was filled, and a river was formed. What a terrifying sword! At the center of the island, he cut out a river. It's horrible. The crew of the tiger and lion pirates swallowed their saliva in horror, and were directly forced to be frightened. Landbass even narrowed his eyes, his whole body trembling slightly. Shake. Too strong. This kind of strength is already close to the 4th Emperor. The Reaper continued to move forward, and the tiger-lion pirates were completely stunned at this moment. They stood there in horror and even forgot to respond. The huge island was still shaking at the moment, and everyone was a little unstable. Such a powerful person, how can we resist? All the crew members were extremely frightened, and the sword completely shattered their hearts of resistance. At this moment, some crew members were even more frightened and their legs were shaking. Kill. As the Reaper approached the coast, Yang Qing waved coldly, just saying this. Then his right hand stretched out, and clenched suddenly. Buzz. A space of 5,000 meters was suddenly caught in the palm of his hand. Within this huge area, the earth began to shake, trees rose from the ground, and a large amount of sea water spread toward the island. In an instant, it was like the end of the world. The ground on which every one of the tiger-lion pirates stood, became the most terrifying weapon at this moment, and turned it over to directly target them, scaring everyone's nose in tears. This chapter is not over. Click on the next page to continue reading. Running hard. It's over. What kind of ghost ability is this? Lanba's heart sank, and the ground on which he was standing at the moment was actually rising towards the sky. Heaven and earth, at this moment, seemed to be directly controlled by that person. With his right fist clenched, Lanbas stood on the shaking ground and slammed out a punch. Tiger and Lion Strike, move the ground. Lanbas's unique powerful punch reappeared, heading towards the sky. This terrifying punch directly blasted away the surrounding high ground, then fluttered down, and then went straight to Yangqing on the bow of the death god. And go. Lanbas could see that as long as this man was defeated, all these terrible sights would disappear. In the sky, Yangqing noticed the large shaking sky ahead. The area controlled by his fruit ability slowly calmed down again, and was quickly wiped out by Lanbas boxing and the abilities of other cadres. Moreover, Nalanbas has already stepped on the void and rushed towards him at this moment. Did it come straight to me? It's interesting. Yangqing's eyes showed a smile. He stared at the big man who kept approaching, and withdrew his right hand. Then, try my new ability. Behind him, Glaives roared. Brothers, go. 100 people go to 10,000 people, today we will make great achievements. Roar. Chapter 195 Rolling. Glaives' voice was so loud that he jumped down directly towards the Reaper, and the 100 elites of the Death Pirates followed closely. They all had crazy expressions and fighting intent. Not afraid, but fighting spirit. Yangqing walked in the void at a very fast speed. After 3 steps, he was 10 meters in front of Lanbas. Lanbas looked at him solemnly. His eyes were full of killing intent, while Yangqing's face was indifferent. The two observed closely for 3 seconds, and the next moment, Lanbas took the lead. His right hand was raised high, his fist was clenched, his entire body swelled, and the domineering aura spread around, and the impacted air began to thin. 2 seconds later, he became a standing tiger lion, domineering and mighty, 3 meters tall, like a hill. His right fist turned into a clenched sharp claw, and the dark armament color domineering wrapped around it. Tiger and Lion Strike, King Fist. The space seems to be pulled in by this punch, and the terrifying power spreads out in all directions in the blink of an eye. At the same time, Yangqing, who was standing opposite him, had a dark armed color lingering on his right hand, and the ability of the second type of devil fruit inside his body also began to flow out. Blue cyan scales appeared on Yangqing's right hand, and then spread to his arm. In an instant, his right arm was covered with a layer of hard scales. Then, he suddenly waved his fist and met the fist of the opposite person. Unicorn arm. The 2 fists suddenly split the sky into 2 halves, and then slammed together fiercely. Bang! Huge air waves rolled and rushed out in all directions. The wind was blowing, and there was a depression on the sea below. The fist pressure of these 2 people was terrifying. The power increase of the animal fruit is presented at this moment. Animal Department. At this time, Lanbas was shocked. He stared at Yangqing in disbelief. You have 2 abilities. Yangqing was silent, and threw a punch again, and between his fists, the ability to control the fruit was activated, and the sea below immediately rose, quickly moving towards his back, and gathering on the punch. From a distance, it was as if Yangqing threw out a fist slowly, pulling the entire sea. The terrifying sight made Lanbas tremble and tremble. Although the latter was frightened, in the face of this terrifying attack, he had to resist. He could feel that if he didn't meet this punch again, he would die. Tiger and Lion Strike, Double King Fist. Lanbas went out of his way. This is his strongest strength. When he threw this punch, the space behind him seemed to be distorted, and the thick domineering was integrated into his punch. Then, when it waved, it exploded. Bang! The 2 pairs of fists slammed together again, and then everyone saw that Lanbas was directly hit by a strong punch and flew out, like a cannonball, slamming into the interior of the island. With a loud bang, Lanbas knocked the island out of a deep pit. Yangqing lifted his footsteps lightly and stepped in front of Lanbas. Surrounding him were countless horrified and retreating crew members of the Tiger Lion Pirates. Lanbas stood up staggeringly, his right hand trembled and trembled slightly. At this moment, Yangqing was full of horror in his eyes. The person in front of him is no longer a human being. He actually controls the ability of 2 kinds of fruits. This is simply impossible and unbelievable. He has never heard of anyone who can eat 2 devil fruits and still be alive. You are not human. Lanbas said. That punch completely crushed him. It was a very terrifying force, and he almost thought that Whitebeard was standing in front of him. This slender, young and terrifying man may have the power of the 4 emperors with white beards. He is definitely not his opponent. Yang Qing strode forward and approached Lanbas. After 3 breaths, he threw a punch, the wind roared, and the air roared continuously, crackling like lightning. Lanbas let out a roar and raised his fist to resist. But it was useless. This punch smashed Lanbas straight out, and an explosion occurred in a radius of 100 meters around the two of them. The power of this punch shook the earth. Countless crew members were shocked by the remnants of this punch, and their 7 orifices bleed, and their eyes turned white and fell to the ground. People screamed in horror and ran away from the fighting range between the two. Captain, not that person's opponent, save the captain. The cadres looked at the field and said in shock. Then, a dozen people surrounded Yang Qing directly. Just as they moved, Glades narrowed his eyes and saw clearly. I have to help the boss. These guys don't know what fairness is at all. Just when the words popped out of his mouth, the officials of the Tiger and Lion Pirates had already approached Yang Qing. Lanbas also stood up slowly, and then, he roared frantically and hit Yang Qing again. Bang! Yu Wei swept across, the airwaves rolled, and the dozen or so cadres who rushed up were directly shocked and flew out. And Lanbas was even more shocked, and was thrown away from a distance. The captain of the most powerful force in the New World, whose bounty was close to the 4 emperors, could not bear Yang Qing's simple and rude punches. The unicorn fruit cooperated with the control fruit, coupled with Yang Qing's own strength. There was a qualitative change at this moment. Just a few punches made a powerful captain kneel directly in front of him. Too strong. Lanbas was desperate. This not tall figure, at this moment, was incomparably tall in his heart. Yang Qing took 3 steps again, trying to get close to Lanbas and give him the final blow. At this moment, Yu Jin swept him away. This chapter is not over. Click on the next page to continue reading. The cadres of the Flying Tiger and Lion Pirates rushed out again. Their mouths were full of blood, and their eyes were crazy. Rescue the captain. Be sure to rescue the captain. Yang Qing's eyes narrowed and he turned around abruptly. What he saw was a dozen figures rushing towards him from all directions, and there was a killing intent in his eyes. Lanbas also saw this scene at this moment. His eyes widened immediately. Stop. Yang Qing raised his right foot, and blue-green scales appeared on his right leg, and the huge power immediately gathered. Stop! We surrender, let them go. Lanbas shouted loudly. Yang Qing's right foot suddenly stepped down and landed on the ground. Boom! At this moment, more than a dozen figures had reached 1 meter in front of Yang Qing, surrounding him in the middle. Then there was a look of horror in their eyes, and sharp soil pillars rushed out from the ground, and huge shock waves spread in all directions. In an instant, they were rushed out at a faster speed, and a mouthful of blood spurted out in the air. Chapter 196 Surrender. Ah! Lanbas roared frantically. He knelt on the ground, his forehead kept hitting the ground, making a bang 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 sound. He clearly knew the strength of those dozen people. With their physical fitness and strength, they simply couldn't bear the aftermath of the man in front of him. That terrifying blow seemed to be able to destroy the entire island. It was terrifying. In just a few punches, his whole body was shaking. At this moment, even a trace of strength could not be used. Yang Qing turned around and walked in front of Lanbas. Seeing the man's painful appearance, he understood the latter's feelings in his heart. Boom! The ability to control the fruit spreads in all directions, and in a short period of time, it has shrouded a radius of 15,000 miles, wrapping the entire battlefield. Then, his whole body trembled, starting to change from the head. The whole body swelled up, arms, legs, hands, feet, and body all began to swell rapidly. 3 seconds later, a behemoth appeared in front of Lanbas and exhaled hot breath towards him. What is it? Lanbas was stunned. This strange beast had 2 antlers and a ferocious face. It was 10 meters tall, 30 meters long, and nearly 3 meters wide. Extremely large. He stood there, so powerful that anyone could feel the terrifying power in his body. The whole body is covered with hard scales. And, after his whole body trembled, with a poof sound, a red flame burned, and the next moment, golden clouds appeared from the soles of his feet, and he started to walk towards the sky with the movement of his footsteps. Soon, he stood 30 meters high, looking down at the entire battlefield with invincible eyes. Glades stared dumbfounded at the seemingly fierce beast in the sky. It can be said that at this moment, the entire battlefield was attracted by this behemoth. This is the power of the second fruit of the boss, Keelin. Glades muttered in shock. It's so strong, it looks incredibly strong. Roar. In the sky, the behemoth raised his head to the sky with a violent roar. His front 2 feet moved towards the sky, the golden clouds kept appearing under his feet, and he began to run in the sky. After 10 seconds, he stopped and looked at everyone below. Its huge pupils are full of indifference and ruthlessness, and all the people who have been swept by him are all weak. Roar. Another roar, this time a terrifying sound wave exploded directly above the ground. Then the 15,000-kilometer radius began to vibrate, and the ground began to reverse. In the shape of a rectangle, the 4 corners began to close toward the inner center. No, no, no. Landbass yelled, and he saw that the whole world began to reverse again, this time with even greater power. We surrender. Landbass roared frantically. He saw that some crew members on the island had given up their resistance. Under the power of the giant beast, in this strange environment, some people had begun to collapse, sitting on the ground, crying bitterly, while others ran away desperately. He ran in other directions, but was thrown down by the rising ground. Surrender, our tiger lion pirates surrender. Landbass's loud cry rang again, and his snot and tears came out of his roar. This time, the voice was unusually loud, and everyone in the battlefield looked at him. Glades and the others stopped fighting, and more than 100 of them gathered together. Outside were panic-stricken, almost desperate crew members of the Tiger Lion pirates who wanted to fight to the death. They stood there blankly, as if they hadn't reacted. The battle is over. The fighting time was very short, so short that it was useless to even have a meal, but in this short period of time, the fear suffered by the people here was beyond words for the rest of their lives. They have never experienced such a terrifying battle, the world seems to be turned over, and the giant beast in the sky, everyone can't raise the will to resist. Walking slowly, Yang Qing fell down, and when he arrived in front of Landbass, his huge pupils stared at the back, his mouth opened, and a dull voice came out. Submit. Submit, we surrender, Landbass said in pain. Pull out your pirate flag and put the scythe and skeleton of my death pirates. This island will be the domain of my death. Yang Qing's dull voice spread throughout the entire island. The buzzing sound made the whole island fall into silence, and the shouting finally stopped. But at this moment, the Tiger Lion pirates, who had just turned back from fear, ushered in sadness again. Okay. Tears welled up in Landba's eyes. The pride of a pirate, the glory of a lifetime, was finally lost at this moment. Those more than a dozen people are still alive. I'll spare my love, don't worry. Yang Qing's huge figure changed, and finally returned to the shape of an adult. Landbass was stunned for a moment, then he quickly looked into the distance and saw that the officers of the Tiger and Lion pirates were covered in blood, but they finally stood up tenaciously. Although they were seriously injured, just as Yang Qing said to be alive. Thank you, thank you. Landbass was instantly filled with gratitude. Life or death, the winner is the king. Yang Qing said indifferently, you don't have to thank me, be prepared to receive everything. Landba's eyes dimmed and nodded. Then he began to gather the crew of the Tiger and Lion pirates. In the end, after he counted, his heart trembled. Nearly 30% of the more than 10,000 pirate members died, and the other 7,000 were in chaos and chaos. Part of them lost their fighting spirit, and they were terrified in the face of the ability like the disaster of heaven and earth. This chapter is not over. Click on the next page to continue reading. Can this person compete with Whitebeard? At this moment, Lambas looked at the figure and suddenly thought in his heart, he is too powerful. This battle, it can be said, is completely a battle of his own, alone, defeating a pirate group, too strong. Such a level may have reached the status of 4 emperors. What he lacked at the moment was only power. However, this problem, perhaps after today, will no longer be a problem. The tiger and lion pirates have surrendered, and the power of the death god pirates has instantly increased. The entrance to the new world can be said to have entered the grasp of Yangqing. From then on, if the other 4 emperors do not move, then as time goes by, he will only become stronger and stronger, and his progress will become bigger and bigger. Controlling the entrance, the death god pirates can be said to have completely cut off the pulse of the potential powerhouses to the major forces. The power of the 4 emperors will only stay where they are, and on the other hand, the death god pirates are getting stronger and stronger. Chapter 197 Success. Lambas looked at the expressionless young man in front of him from a close distance, and suddenly a strong feeling of admiration surged in his heart. He is so old, but he is so powerful and has such a terrifying aura. Isn't he clear about this? No, he must be clear. He may have planned everything. Lambas looked complicated. Blue blue blue. The phone in his arms rang, and Yangqing answered in a deep voice, "Hello." "Take it." Nilu's cold voice came from the opposite side, slightly panting. "Understood." Yangqing nodded and hung up. Immediately afterwards, within 3 minutes, the phone worm rang again, and coincidentally, he remembered the voices of Dylan's and Drizzt. "It's taken. Except for the cadres other than the ordinary crew, we have done them all. Gather the crew and return to speed," Yangqing ordered. At this moment, to be honest, Yangqing's heart was inexplicably excited. Done, really done. When carrying out a plan, he was also very nervous. He chose the most powerful force and distributed more troops to the other 3 teams, just to relieve their pressure. Sure enough, they did not let themselves down. The entrance to the new world has finally been won. The light in Yangqing's eyes flickered, and the first step was finally completed. The 4 most powerful forces, the 4 islands, were successfully captured by him. At this moment, the death god pirates will become the new overlord, a rising star in the new world. And after today, the name of the death god pirates will surely spread throughout the world. They will all know how powerful death is. 1 on 4, all wins. Brothers, Yangqing suddenly said loudly, and all the crew of the death pirates looked at him. We succeeded, Yangqing shouted loudly. Glades was stunned for a moment, and the more than 100 crew members were stunned. The next moment they all reacted and shouted excitedly. Ha ha ha, we won, the other 3 teams also succeeded, the new world is ours, it's ours. It's not the new world, it's the entrance, but we were so good, we really won, really succeeded. Awesome, the captain is too strong, the cadres are too strong. The crew fell into excitement and roared loudly. Lambas was sluggish, and the other 3 forces also failed. This shocked him all over, and he looked at Yangqing's back with admiration and shock. The entrance to the new world is his. At this moment, no one can stop him from moving forward. Walking towards the coast with great strides, Yangqing led more than 100 crew members onto the Reaper. The pirates of the Tiger and Lion pirates silently looked at the backs of the hundreds of people, with fear and reverence in their eyes. More than 100 people defeated them. This is a legend, especially that person, that terrifying man. The Death God pirates started their first war and completely stood firm in the New World. After this battle, they finally made a name for themselves, shocked the world, and caught the world's attention. A day later, newspapers, monitors around the world, and broadcasts were all reporting information about the Death God pirates. At present, the Death God pirates were divided into 4 yesterday, quickly attacked the 4 major forces at the entrance of the New World, and then with an absolute advantage, they crushed them all, completely subduing the remaining forces of the 4 major forces, and they have become the entrance and exit of the New World. the largest power, all of which prove that in the near future, the distribution of power in the New World will be reshuffled, and new turmoil will come. The terrifying death god pirates finally showed their hideous fangs. All the small and large pirates at the entrance to the New World have fallen into panic, and the death god's conquest iron hoofs can no longer be stopped. At present, there is news that their pirates have reached a terrifying number of 40,000. This is 40,000 pirates. Some experts predict that the next step of the death god pirates will be to advance into the depths of the New World, approaching the Fourth Emperor. His next goal may be to challenge the status of the Fourth Emperor. On the world, all kinds of chaotic news spread, and the reputation of the death god pirates suddenly surged to the peak. No matter how remote the place is, you can hear the discussion about the death god pirates at this moment. Marine Headquarters. I didn't expect them to move so fast. As soon as they took down Punk Hazard, they attacked the forces around them. Warring States said solemnly. An old lieutenant general said, "This captain is a very courageous person. He cuts through the mess quickly and does not give anyone a chance to react. As far as I know, one or two of these four major forces have already begun. I have contacted the four emperors, but, without even giving them a chance, they were directly reduced to ashes, so fast, it is shocking. Maybe we can try to see if we can win him over. Compared with Brother Doflamingo, he seems to be more eye-catching. If it succeeds, it will definitely push the Wuhai plan to a peak state." The young general's eyes flickered. The lieutenant general's present pondered, and after more than 10 seconds, someone nodded and said, "You can try to win over. The new pirate group is not as complete as the four emperors, and there are some opportunities. Yes, he will face the suppression of the four emperors next. If he gets close to our naval soldiers, he will have an extra layer of protection. If he is not stupid, he should not choose the wrong one." At this moment, someone said angrily, "Did you forget about the dozen or so resentful souls of Punk Hassad? Anyone can, only the Death God group, Ju can't participate in the Wuhai plan. For the justice of the Navy, it is natural to sacrifice some interests. With the suppression of the Death God pirates, the help to the Navy is huge." This chapter is not over. Click on the next page to continue reading. The young general said casually. The meeting became chaotic, and it began to divide into two factions, and began to quarrel over whether the Death God gang joined Wuhai. Warring States frowned, a little headache. "Shut up, that's not what I told you to talk about, just shut up." Warring States slapped the table hard. Seeing the Warring States get angry, the noisy generals just calmed down. It's an era of headaches. Warring States cursed in his heart. East China Sea, in a small town. The freckled teenager was holding a newspaper in his hand and looking at the newspaper. A smile appeared on his face. "Ace, what are you laughing at?" A silly child walked up behind him and asked him loudly. "Look, they're amazing," Ace said loudly, pointing to the faces in the newspaper, "and I'm also their crew." Then, he stretched out his arm, revealing the scythe skull tattoo engraved on it, which is the symbol of the Death God pirates, unique. Chapter 198 10 Divisions. The tattoo of the sickle and skeleton was engraved on the shoulders, and it could be seen by wiping the sleeves. "Are you already a pirate, Ace? That's amazing." Luffy looked at Ace with starry eyes, just envious. "Well, I am their member, I have to work hard. I will go to sea in a few years, and they cannot let them underestimate me." Ace touched the sword of oath behind his back and said with certainty. "I'm the man who wants to become the Pirate King, Ace." Luffy shouted loudly. "It must be me who will be the Thief King in Shanghai." Ace stood up and shouted confidently. "It's me." Luffy didn't give in. "It's me." The two began to quarrel, and after a long time, they squatted down out of breath, snorted fiercely, and then ignored each other. Ace clenched his fists, his heart full of firmness. "I must be the Pirate King of Shanghai City, I am that person's son. The Pirate King, mine." Looking at the distant shore, Ace's heart has already flown into the Great Root. Among Punk Hassad. The victorious death god pirates had a 3-day carnival. The whole island they drank was full of alcohol, and the members of the pirate group had risen to as many as 50,000 at this moment. The flag of the sickle and skull, erected high on the top of the mountain, fluttering in the wind. Yang Qing sat cross-legged on the ground, next to a huge wine jar. The pirate flag behind him trembled. Drink. He raised the huge wine jar with one hand, faced the 10 teams lined up in front, and shouted loudly. The domineering on his body covered the entire sky. Drink. 50,000 people were excited, roared loudly, and then poured the wine in the bowl into their mouths. Starting today, my death god pirates will be divided into 10 divisions. Captain of the 1st Division, Bucky. 2nd Division Captain, Anilu. Captain of the 3rd Division, Drizzt. Captain of the 4th Division, Luo. Captain of the 5th Division, Longbottom. Captain of the 6th Division, Erdish. Captain of the 7th Division, Glades. Captain of the 8th Division, Corazon. Captain of the 9th Division, Nips. Captain of the 10th Division, Landbass. When talking about the captain of the 10th Division, Yang Qing paused slightly. This decision was beyond everyone's expectations, but then there was a loud roar all over the island. Celebrating the birth of the new captain was most excited by Nips and Landbass, who were also the most amazing. One is the identity of a mermaid, and the other is a newcomer who has just surrendered, but both are entrusted by Yang Qing. Celebrate for 3 days, then, you gentlemen follow me to clear the entrance to the whole new world. No matter how much time it takes, we will succeed in reaching the summit. Yang Qing's domineering voice spread throughout the island. Then 50,000 people raised their glasses together, poured the wine into their mouths again, and shouted loudly, "Top! Top! Top!" The forces at the entrance to the new world are intricate and complicated. It is undoubtedly very difficult to form a circle of influence like the 4 emperors, and it will take a long time. But all this is worth it. Throughout the island, the atmosphere was very warm, and the pirate crew deepened and accelerated their understanding. 3 days later, their relationship was even closer. And in the process, many dozens of people, and small groups of dozens of people also began to join the Death God Pirates. They were only allowed to join after a special person started the assessment. The standard of joining is getting higher and higher, and as the reputation of the Death God Pirates increases, the more people come here. Even in the first half of the Great Waterway where newcomers are everywhere, some people have worshipped Yang Qing as a god, calling him the real death god who came to the world, with the same power as the 4 emperors. After the celebration, the 10 teams separated and returned to their respective islands. Yang Qing asked them to repair for a while, and then began to erode the surrounding forces. This time, it is no longer a domineering direct attack on the enemy, but a gradual smashing, a gentle transition that is easy to break. Today's death pirates are already the most powerful force at the entrance of the new world, but what they need is to oppress people, to convince people with virtue. Of course, this time is long, but the Death God Pirates don't care anymore. At the moment, the Death God Pirates have temporarily reached the peak state of the current stage, and it is difficult to go further. Moreover, to go one step further, that is the stage of the 4 emperors. Yang Qing was reluctant to do things he was not sure about. At this time, attacking the position of the 4 emperors would cause his pirates to suffer terrible losses. The status of the 4 emperors is first and foremost powerful, crushing everything, and secondly, the countless forces. At this moment, Yang Qing, the accumulation is not enough, the impulse will only lead him to perish. Next, go to Dressrosa, that country, and you have the best chance to act at this moment. Yang Qing's eyes flickered, and she said to the cadres beside her. Do we need all of us? Drizzt joked. Ha ha ha, what do you think? We're not going to attack them. Dylan's also laughed. I'm asking to go, I've heard about Doflamingo for a long time, and the team under my command is very sure. Landbass said loudly, he had just joined the group of death, he needed to submit a certificate to prove himself, and Dufu Brother Looming's head is undoubtedly the most suitable. Lanebas, I won't let you go alone. Dylan's eyes showed a chill. This chapter is not over. Click on the next page to continue reading. He still remembered that time when he was surrounded by the opponent and almost died. You have to avenge your own revenge. Lanthus was taken aback for a moment, then nodded. Then you two go ahead and bring the backbone of the team, not too many. Yangqing nodded and said with a smile. Dylan's and Lanthus looked at each other and turned around immediately. Looking at the backs of the two of them speechlessly, Yangqing shook his head and smiled. These two people are so impatient. Afterwards, Yangqing retracted his gaze, looked around at his friends, and suddenly sighed. Luo, how long has it been since we arrived here from the Great Channel? Yangqing asked in a deep voice. It's been almost 2 years. Luo Yi was stunned and replied after thinking about it. It's 2 years and 3 months. Robin smiled. Yangqing stared blankly at the sky, seemingly unexpected. Is it already so long? Time flies so fast. Who said it wasn't? Drizzt sighed. From an obscure pirate group, it has finally grown to the present. All the cadres and crew fell into contemplation, remembering the years at that time, and smiles appeared on their faces. I remember, we still have a little brother left in the East China Sea. Moria said suddenly. Yangqing also smiled. Did you mean Ace? Chapter 199 _ Of course, Ace and the others did not forget that the crew who had already been booked, although they had not yet gone to sea, were already part of the Death God pirates. This fact will not be changed and cannot be doubted. The time has not yet come. When one day we hear Ace's reputation resounding on the sea, it will be time to bring him back. Yangqing said with a smile. Drizzt said with a smile, Captain, are you so sure that this little guy can have a future? Well, I'm pretty sure. Yangqing laughed loudly. The crew members were a little surprised, and those who had never heard Ace's name were secretly curious about who this kid was, and how important it was in the boss's heart. The Death God pirates have entered a period of renovation. The general framework of the major teams has been established, and then the specific and detailed divisions, the captains of each team, and the separation of the fleet are also determined by their own team captains. For a time, Yangqing fell into a quiet life. Of course, he is not completely idle. The growth of power involves a wide range, and he needs to take into account all aspects. Next, I am afraid that the 4 emperors will not be polite to me, and we must take protective measures as soon as possible. Yangqing shook his head, and his heart was a little dignified. According to his estimation, I am afraid that for a long time, he will have to enter and follow the 4 the emperors are in the process of arguing with each other. There will be no large-scale battles. Most of the 4 emperors' forces are in the depths, and all the rash raids involve a wide range of people, and if it is not dispatched by a group, it is impossible to destroy the Death God pirates. At this point, the Death God pirates have formed a scale, no longer the miscellaneous soldiers that can easily disappear into the sea. After thinking for a moment, Yangqing dialed the phone bug. Sir. The phone bug was easily connected this time, and there was a smiling male voice, very magnetic. Yangqing was a little surprised. He still remembered that after the last call, the deep resentment in the tone of the man on the opposite side could be heard across thousands of miles. Why, are you happy this time? Is there any progress? Yangqing asked. Yangqing raised his eyebrows and laughed softly. It seems that you have done a lot of work. Yeah, it's quite strenuous. The light assassination has been encountered 5 or 6 times. The voice complained. Is there any danger? Do you need me to send someone to help you? Yangqing asked. That's the best. There is a person in the Doflamingo family, but I really want to get rid of it. There was a killing intent in the male voice opposite. What's your name? Yangqing asked. Virgo, one of the officials of the Doflamingo family. This guy is a little troublesome for me. Understood. Someone will come to you in a few days. Yangqing nodded, and then the two communicated with each other, got to know each other's situation, and made arrangements for the next plan. Also, you need to be careful about one person. Huh, Yangqing wondered. Golden Lion, you need to be careful about him. Although this person's reputation is far from what it used to be, he is still one of the great pirates. Your reputation is so bad now, it's hard to be sure whether he will recover through you. With his peak reputation, we must know that he can make a big deal of the existence of the Marine Corps headquarters, and even the legendary Push City can escape from prison, and his own strength is by no means inferior to any of the 4 emperors. Yang Qing's eyes flashed, and then nodded, understood. The Golden Lion is indeed a legendary figure. His terrifying abilities are somewhat similar to his own. He is a very powerful man. If you have a chance, you must see it. Yang Qing does not think that this legendary man will really start a war with him. According to the plot, he is probably accumulating his own strength, and then preparing to attack the sea soldiers again. Furthermore, even if the other party comes, he is not afraid. Compared with the 4 emperors, the current Golden Lion has entered the advancing city, and its strength has retreated to the lowest point in history. Compared with the 4 emperors, he is still a big cut. With the current scale of the Death God pirates, there is absolutely no need to worry about the latter. At the same time, the Dylan's team, who had already set off with the cadres in their respective squads, as well as Lanbas and others, also set off by boat. Punk Hazard is not very far from Dressrosa, and one day is enough to get there. The 2 of them each joined a medium-sized pirate group, and the number of people they brought together was not large. Together, the 2 groups were exactly 24 people. 2 pirate ships sailed the sea by the wind, walking side by side. The speed is almost the same, but what the 2 have in mind is different. It's finally here, Doflamingo, this time, I won't let you go. Dylan's narrowed his eyes tightly. He had already received the news that the other party had become Dressrosa's king. It really surprised him. But what does this matter? Will the Reaper pirates be afraid? Possibly afraid. As for Lanbas on the side, Dylan's pouted, he will handle his own affairs himself. This old guy is too powerful, he can't let him take the lead, otherwise wouldn't he say that he is not as good as him? Lanbas was standing on the pirate ship at the moment, and behind him were a group of former cadres. At this time, his expression was extraordinarily serious and serious. Brothers, this time we must succeed in one fell swoop to prove our strength and not let the captain down. Lanbas said loudly, and the crew behind him nodded vigorously. On that day, Yang Qing's power conquered everyone. That terrifying ability, like a god, looks down on all beings. Moreover, after subduing them, they can still be given heavy responsibilities with confidence. Such trust is more important and touching for them. 1. This chapter is not over. Click on the next page to continue reading. The pirate group that surrendered, but served as the captain of the 10th Division. This is the captain. The entire pirate group only has 10 positions. What a great honor. After half a day, the 2 pirate ships slowly approached Dressrosa, the pirate flag fluttering in the wind, and the flag of the Scythe and Skeleton made everyone fear and panic. The 2 teams jumped off the boat at the same time. Dylan's looked at Lanbas with a smile on his face. This time, let's do it ourselves, Lanbas. That's not good, Vice Captain. This is our 10th team's first battle. We can only succeed, not fail. Lanbas was burly, and his height of 2 meters made him like an iron tower. Dylan's eyes sharpened, and then said lightly, "Then let's do our part." This time, they each lead a team, which is also a competition in a sense. Chapter 200 I ran away. Lanbas nodded, turned his head and left with his team members. "Captain, this is our team's business. This Lanbas, I really don't give you face." Behind him, a young figure said. Dylan's laughed. I can see what he was thinking. The first mission is indeed very important. However, I won't let him. Brothers, act as soon as possible. His eyes narrowed and he said loudly, "Yes, Captain." The 11 people behind him responded loudly, then followed behind Dylan's, heading towards the island quickly. In the blink of an eye, the 2 groups disappeared, leaving only the ship with the pirate flag shaking at the port. But after a while, the 2 pirate ships were noticed by people with a heart. When he saw the flag fluttering on the top mast, the man immediately went soft and sat on the ground. Dead, die, death pirates. A terrified scream spread throughout the port, attracting the attention of countless people, and then in an instant, the faces of a large number of people changed. They looked up and saw the port, 2 pirate ships moored on the coast, quietly undulating. The black and white sickle and skull flag fluttered in the wind, exuding an eerie light. Time goes back, an hour later. According to the information given to us by the captain, Dressrosa has undergone great changes. At this moment, the original king, King Riku, has stepped down and was imprisoned by the new superior Doflamingo. Looking at the huge country in front of him, Lanba's eyes were a little serious. It can be seen that Brother Doflamingo, who has always been inconspicuous, also has huge ambitions. It's very capable. With only a few dozen people, they won a country. The players behind him said with a smile. Durence's side is no different from our intelligence. If we want to rush ahead of him, we must rely on our own strength to find Doflamingo as soon as possible, and then directly kill them with strong power, and then rescue King Riku again. Landbass said solemnly. Rescue King Riku, the team members wondered. Yes, we can't take tough measures all the time. One's violence will only arouse stronger resistance. The captain is a man of great means. Landbass sighed. He was conquered by violence and pressure. My heart was very uncomfortable at first, but after I was told that the 10th Division captain was appointed, my heart changed immediately. A strong captain who trusts you, maybe, that's nice too. Since then, our pirate ship's strategy has also been to form an alliance with its surrounding forces. Of course, the attitude is tough, and those who do not cooperate can only be destroyed. Landbass said firmly. The team members looked at each other, then smiled. Then it seems that we can't toss too much in this country. In this case, it will be difficult to find Brother Doflamingo. It doesn't matter, Dylan's and the others are the same. We don't need to find them quickly, we just need to be faster than them. Landbass said with a smile. He is very confident in himself. As long as he finds Doflamingo's group, he will definitely be able to destroy them. Blang, use your ability, and then search for traces of Doflamingo. Remember to aim at the palace of this kingdom, he has the greatest chance of being there. Landbass said to one person behind him. Understood. Lang stood up immediately, and then his ears quickly became larger, and did not stop until 3 meters, and then listened to the movement of the entire island. How? Landbass asked. Lang said with a strange expression, is he not in the palace? Landbaugh's face changed, a little puzzled. It's not in the palace, where is it? At this moment at the port of Dressrosa, a group of people appeared here. The person in front was wearing a feather coat and sunglasses, with an indifferent face, striding forward. It was Doflamingo. Dover, are we leaving like this? Pika's voice rang out from behind. There is something urgent to do, so let them do it in vain. Doflamingo sneered. I really didn't expect that they only sent 2 ships for me. Do you think I am Doflamingo so simple? Can it be dealt with? It's ridiculous. Soon, the group boarded a boat on the coast. Brother Doflamingo looked at the 2 pirate ships not far away, and then smiled sarcastically. After reaching out and shooting, a thick and long line appeared, extending directly towards the pirate ship. 3 seconds later, as if it turned into a huge sword, directly cutting the 2 pirate ships into pieces. Boom! 2 medium-sized pirate ships slowly sank to the bottom of the sea. This scene caused the screams of countless people. Someone dared to take action on the ship of the Death God pirates. Terrible, it's over, it's over. No one knows how the Death God pirates will take revenge on this island. Doflamingo sneered at the 2 pirate ships that were slowly sinking, turned around and laughed, and then the group quickly left here. Dover, where are we going? Recently, the seamen have a batch of tribute goods for the Tianlong people. I'm going to take a look. Maybe this is our chance. Sa, he said again, it's not that easy for these stupid guys to still want to deal with me. At this moment, above Dressrosa, Lang's ears had become 10 meters, and he carefully searched for Doflamingo's position, until half an hour later, his face became more and more ugly. This chapter is not over. Click on the next page to continue reading. No squares. There is no underground arena. Auction house, neither. Doflamingo and his gang are not on this island. Eventually, he settled on this fact. Landbass waved his fist fiercely. He felt like a fool. That group of people had disappeared. At the port, Dylan's looked at the empty port in front of him and the ruins of the ships. His face was indifferent and his eyes were cold. It seems that he has already run away, he said lightly, and he asked the person behind him, Talos, can you track their location? The man named Talos, wearing a strange divination suit, narrowed his eyes into slits, said with a smile, no problem, Captain, tracking, I am the best at it. Dylan's nodded, and then said to the other person, Shanchi, notify Landbass and the others, and let them come to the port immediately. After saying this, he thought for a while and said, let them prepare 2 ships. Understood, Captain. Xianqi nodded calmly, then dialed the phone bug.